This Film is Lit, the podcast where we finally settle the score on one simple question. Is the book really better than the movie? I'm Brian, and I have a film degree, so I watch the movie, but don't read the book.
And I'm Katie. I have an English degree, so I do things the right way and read the book before we watch the movie.
So prepare to be wowed by our expertise and charm as we dissect all of your favorite film adaptations and decide if the silver screen or the written word did it better. So turn it up, settle in, and get ready for spoilers, because this film is lit. We are Sex Bob-Omb, and we are here to make you think about death and get sad and stuff. It's Scott Pilgrim vs. the world, and this film is lit. Hello and welcome back to This Film is Lit, the podcast where we talk about movies that are based on books, and in this instance, graphic novel collections. We are talking about Scott Pilgrim this week. Before we jump into it, this is a little bit of a different format than our normal episodes. It's going to be much more similar, basically identical to our summer series format, because we both read all 6 of the Scott Pilgrim graphic novels for this. Normally, Katie reads it and I don't. But this time we decided to both read it for a couple different reasons. Mainly, I just wanted to because I like this movie a lot, and so I wanted to read the graphic novel. So we decided to both read it. Also, there's a lot to cover, so having 2 people read it helped make sure we didn't miss stuff and misremember stuff, because there's a lot of content in these 6 graphic novels. So we don't have all of our normal segments, but we basically do if you pretend it's a summer series episode. So we're going to start like we usually do with Let Me Sum Up.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
If you have not read or watched Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, here is a brief summary of the film sourced from Wikipedia. In Toronto, Scott Pilgrim, a 22-year-old bass player for unsuccessful indie garage band Sex Bob-Omb, dates Knives Chow, a 17-year-old high school student, to the disapproval of his friends in the band, his roommate Wallace Wells, and his younger sister Stacy Pilgrim. Scott meets Ramona Flowers, an American Amazon delivery girl, at Julie's party after having first seen her in a dream. Scott loses interest in Knives, but does not break up with her immediately before pursuing Ramona. When Sex Bob-Omb plays in a Battle of the Bands, sponsored by record executive Gideon Graves, Scott is attacked by Ramona's ex-boyfriend Matthew Patel. Sex Bob-Omb's competition is incinerated by Matthew's fireball attacks, but Scott defeats him and learns he must defeat her remaining 6 evil exes in order to date Ramona. Scott finally breaks up with Knives, who blames Ramona and swears to win him back by becoming more like Ramona. Scott soon encounters Ramona's second ex, actor and skateboard junkie Lucas Lee. Scott defeats Lucas by tricking him into attempting a grind on a 200-plus step icy railing and crashing explosively. The band is soon asked to open for Clash at Demon Head, whereupon Scott encounters Ramona's third ex, the superpowered vegan bassist Todd Ingram, who is dating Scott's ex, Envy Adams, the lead singer of Clash at Demon Head. Scott deceives Todd into drinking half and half, and Todd is confronted by the vegan police, who stripped of his powers. Scott then delivers the final blow. Scott then encounters Ramona's fourth ex, bisexual ninja Roxy Richter, and with the help of Ramona, he manages to beat her. Scott's growing frustration soon boils over, and after an outburst regarding Ramona's dating history, she breaks up with him while leaving him a list of her exes. At the next battle of the bands, Sex Bob-Omb defeats Ramona's 5th and 6th exes, techno twins Kyle and Ken Katayanagi, earning Scott an extra life. Despite this, Ramona appears to get back with her 7th and final ex, Gideon. Sex Bob-Omb accepts Gideon's record deal except for Scott, who quits the band in protest, during which young Neil is promoted from roadie to bassist. Gideon invites Scott to his venue, the Chaos Theater, where Sex Bob-Omb is playing. Resolving to win Ramona back, Scott challenges Gideon to a fight for her affection, earning the Power of Love's sword. Knives interrupts the battle, attacking Ramona, and Scott is forced to reveal that he cheated on both of them. Gideon kills Scott, and Ramona visits him in limbo to reveal that Gideon has implanted her with a mind control device. Scott uses his 1-up to come back to life and re-enters the Chaos Theater. He makes peace with his friends and challenges Gideon, this time for himself, gaining the power of self-respect. The sword. After apologizing to Ramona and Knives for cheating on them and accepting his own faults, Scott joins forces with Knives and they defeat Gideon. Now free from Gideon's control, Ramona prepares to leave. After the fight, Scott is faced by his darker version, Nega Scott, with whom he hits it off. Knives accepts that her relationship with Scott is over, and at her encouragement, he leaves with Ramona to try again. that is a summary of the film. We got lots to talk about, so much to get to. We're going to start with Better in the Book.
You like to read?
Oh, yes. I love to read.
What do you like to read?
Everything.
So, like a summer series, the way we're going to do this is that we have the stuff that we thought was better in the book, the stuff we thought was better in the movie, and then the stuff that the movie nailed. We're going to go back and forth. You'll see how it works. But we're going to start with better in the book and just talk about all the stuff that we preferred in the book or stuff that we didn't like in the movie, that kind of thing. So, my first note was that I thought, and this goes away after the very first one.
Yes.
But very early in the first book, when they play like their first song, when Sex Bob-Omb plays like their first song, we actually get the chords and the lyrics to the song printed
so
in the book.
You can play along with Sex Bob-Omb.
Yes, which was something that V for Vendetta did at parts, or at least at one part in that, which I thought was fun. And I liked that. I thought that was neat. It does go away. Doesn't repeat ever again after that. But I thought it was going to be a recurring thing, which I thought could be neat, that you could like play the songs as you were reading. But no, it doesn't go from there. But that first one, it does. And to be fair, I don't know how many other songs we even really hear.
Yeah, I was gonna say the band itself also becomes kind of progressively less important,
relevant. Yeah,
the more that we the further we get into the series.
Yeah. Another thing that I thought was funny is that when after Scott meets Ramona, and again, we're going to jump pretty quickly through, so we don't have a ton of better in the book notes here. So we're going to skip through things pretty quickly. After he meets Ramona, or actually it's not after he meets Ramona, I think he sees her. Yeah, he sees her in the library. And he met her at the party at this point too.
No, I think he sees her in the library first.
But no, because I think he's already talked to her at the party once. Yes, he sees her at the library first. Then he sees her at the party, tries to talk to her. That doesn't work out, and then I think he
I think it's after at the party that he learns she delivers for Amazon.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So he has spoken to her. Anyways, it doesn't matter. But in order to have a chance to talk to her again, in both the book and the movie, he finds out she works for Amazon as a delivery person, and he orders some CDs. And in the book specifically, it was mentioned that he orders them from Amazon.ca because this takes place in Toronto in Canada. And that's obviously the Canadian domain for Amazon. But in the book, they're talking about how Amazon is exclusively just a place to buy like books and music and media, basically. And that was all they sold. Because this was back, I don't know, younger listeners may not be aware of this. Amazon started as an online bookstore.
Yeah.
It was basically Barnes and Noble online. And then they added like other media, movies, CDs and stuff, and then everything. But yeah, so I thought that was funny seeing that this was, it's one of the things that I kind of forget about from time to time, is that was how Amazon began. Probably this is a big one for better in the book. Probably the best thing that the book does that the movie does not include much of are the flashbacks, and specifically Scott's flashbacks, because we actually get a little bit of Ramona's backstory in the movie, but we get basically none of Scott's flashbacks. In the book throughout, I kind of just combined it all together because there's a bunch of them throughout all of the books.
Yeah, it's a recurring literary device that these use.
Yeah, which are always denoted in the graphic novel. And the movie does the movie does Ramona's flashbacks by having them be in the style of the graphic novel as
they're
drawings. Yeah. But in the graphic novel, it's a flashback if the frames have this black border on them, basically, that denotes like a flashback, whereas the rest of it doesn't have that. But in those flashbacks, we get to see a lot more of Scott's backstory, specifically his relationship with Kim, and some of his other failed relationships with Lisa, who's another character who in the book that we'll talk about, who is not in the movie at all, and Envy and their whole relationship. Specifically, I thought seeing Scott's relationship with Envy made him a slightly more sympathetic character earlier on.
Yeah.
Because there's one scene in particular in one of the graphic, I don't remember which, I think it's the third one maybe, where we get a flashback to them dating in college or high school.
They dated in college.
And he tells her that he loves her, and she does not reciprocate. And there's this tension and dynamic in their relationship that it's clear that Scott was way more invested in their relationship than she was. And you get a little bit more of an understanding for why Scott is kind of the reserve, the selfish asshole that he is throughout most of the story.
Yeah.
In regards to relationships, and it gives you a little bit of context for that, which I think helps make Scott a less detestable character, because I think that's one of the things that people have the biggest problem with both the book and the movies, or specifically the movie, but also with the books, is just that Scott sucks.
Yeah, he's not a great guy.
Which is the point.
Yes,
the graphic novels
absolutely.
are aware of that. The movie is very aware of that. It's literally the whole point. But I think even with it being the point, people still find him just annoying and obnoxious and not a protagonist that they care about, some people, which I can kind of understand. But I think the book does go a pretty long way of helping at least give some context for that. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. The flashbacks and the expanded backstory were an aspect of the books that I really appreciated. I think that context really helps explain who the characters are and why they act the way that they do. Particularly, like you said, Scott. And then later on, we also get like a little bit more backstory for Ramona that kind of helps flesh her out a little bit as well.
Yeah, I also really like seeing more of Kim. Kim just has a much more expanded role in the graphic novel, which is one of my other favorite things. Because I like her character in the movie. I've always liked her in the movie, played by Allison Pill. And just the way she like virulently hates Scott and like always calls his shit out, I thought was fun. And then seeing more of the context for that and their relationship and why that is the way it is. But then also the resolution of their relationship in the graphic novel, I think works pretty well. I think it works okay in the movie, but you just don't have.
Yeah, you don't have that context of like the years of their friendship.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they had been friends since high school.
Yeah.
I mean, they dated in high school. And maybe my biggest beef with the movie, I think I have this note later, but I'll just go ahead and say it now, is that I do think the movie shortchanges Scott and Kim's relationship.
Yes, 100%. I would agree with that. That I do think that is probably the movie's biggest shortfall. And then one other thing that we'll get to here in a second. But one thing that is I think it's in the second or third. I'm not going to try to remember which books
they were
these are
also
in.
kind of hard to take notes on because they don't really have page numbers.
They did eventually.
Yeah.
But the first few do not have page numbers. And then some of the later ones do have page numbers, but they're still
not on every
sporadically,
page. Yeah.
It's where they like have room for them. But like I'm looking at volume 2, it does not have page numbers. So I don't know. I don't remember which one they started on. So yeah, there's not really page numbers. And then also the story just continues. So it's hard sometimes to remember which part happened where. So I'm not going to try to like cite which book this all happened in. But in one of them, pretty early on, we get a fun step-by-step recipe for vegan shepherd's pie, narrated by Stephen Stills.
Yeah.
Which I thought was fun. You literally could, although you would have to kind of know how to cook already. As I was reading through it, I was like, you couldn't do this as like a teenager like who doesn't know how to cook. I don't know if you could follow these instructions, but I could follow those instructions and make a vegan shepherd's pie. So I thought that was fun.
Yeah. An exchange that I really liked in that scene, because they're all like having dinner together. They're like cooking dinner together.
Yeah.
This group of friends, which I think is really nice. But they have this exchange. They're like, "Oh, we're making vegan shepherd's pie," and somebody else is like, "Who's vegan?" And then
I think it's Ramona, because isn't Ramona there? I think
she's like new to the group at that point. She's like, "Well, who's vegan?" And they're like, "None of us. We just like to be inclusive."
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing that I really liked in the first volume, I believe, and we do see this character in the movie, but we don't really interact with her.
And she has a lot of the same lines.
Yeah.
Like she does the same thing. She's just in fewer scenes.
Yeah. But specifically, when Knives is breakup dyeing her hair after her and Scott break up, her best friend, Tamara, is there with her. And she says, like, I should have copied this.
I'm pretty sure this is in the second one, but
it's first or second. I don't remember.
Because I don't think they break up in the first one. I don't think, but I don't remember.
So they're talking about Scott, and Tamara's like, maybe he's just a jerk.
Yes,
and I was like, see, Tamara gets it.
Yes,
she gets it.
Yeah,
I had and that then exact note. Later on in that same scene, Knives is like, do you think he was too old for me? And she goes, Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she just like bluntly calls out the bullshit in a way that is very funny. I had that same note about her being like, maybe he's just a jerk, and Knives like, no, that can't be the case.
Yeah.
That's not it. That's
No,
not what it
he's
is.
just a jerk.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was very funny.
Another little detail, like kind of character backstory detail that I enjoyed in the book is that Envy starts going by the name Envy because her initials are NV.
Yeah. Which I bet you could probably find out in the movie if you paid super close attention to details. But because they definitely refer to as Nat at times and Natalie, so you know her first name is Natalie. But yeah, I don't know if you ever know what her last name is and if you would ever figure that out. But they explicitly in the novel say that she used Envy because Natalie, whatever her last name was, for her initials.
Another thing that gets left out of the movie, the movie mentions that Todd, Vegan Todd,
Envy's current boyfriend,
punched a hole in the moon for Ramona.
Yes,
when they were dating.
Yeah, we get that backstory in the movie where in the graphic novel flashbacky thing, we see that happening, and she mentions that.
Yeah, and I appreciated the way that the movie truncated that whole storyline. That was my note for this. Like overall.
Yeah, that was what I had for this.
But I did think the moment of Envy realizing that Todd punching a hole in the moon for her was not actually special was a good moment.
Yes, because it's revealed that Todd also punched a hole in the moon for Ramona. Or is that first?
Yes.
And they say specifically in the graphic novel, and they're like, oh, is that why the moon has the two big craters in it or whatever on the side we can see? And they're like, yeah. I don't disagree that I thought it was funny that like that there's some good character work for like Todd there and like who he is as a person. The fact that he had done that exact same thing for Ramona and then he did it for Envy. So, he used the exact same kind of ploy for both of them. I did think that it was a little like, I don't know. I wasn't a huge, I thought that cutting some of that stuff out were good edits because I just thought it was like something about how all that conversation played out just felt really awkward and clunky to me. And I was like, I'm glad the movie cut this. I don't remember exactly why. I would have to go find it.
Overall, the part of the book that with Todd and Envy, I think is very clunky.
Yes,
like overall.
I agree.
It kind of meanders and drags out for no real reason.
Yeah. I will say, though, one of the things that the graphic novel does have that I did really like, and the movie very truncates this incredibly, is the goodbye. Like, after he defeats Todd, the resolution of him and Envy's relationship. I thought the awkward goodbye with Envy in the book was a lot more interesting, and, like, it gave them more time and resolved that relationship in a way that I thought just felt better. Whereas in the movie, she just kind of leaves and disappears and she's never in the movie again. She's in actually like the rest of the graphic novels. Like she keeps showing back. Well, she disappears for a while, but then she shows back up again in the final graphic novel kind of working with Gideon a little bit. But I thought, I really liked their goodbye in the graphic novel and the fact that he lets her keep his sweater. And I thought they just had a very nice like parting in the novel that the movie kind of gives them, but it's just very quick and not doesn't really spend much time on it.
My next note here is actually a criticism of the movie.
Yes.
And I thought that Roxy like orgasming as she's defeated was a choice.
Yeah. I had the same note. So that happens. A similar thing happens in the graphic novel because they truncate the whole Todd fight and everything. There's this extra fight. There's a bunch of extra stuff, obviously, in the books, but one of them is this fight between Envy and Ramona.
Yeah,
that is not in the movies.
No, not at all.
Not in the movie singular. And they in that fight, Scott helps Ramona by doing the weak spot attack to Envy, which is the thing that Ramona tells Scott to do in the movie, which is like poking her in the back of the knee or whatever.
Yeah.
Like poking the back
and
of her knee. That's like her weak spot.
Yeah.
And
her
that's
off switch.
Yeah. And he uses that on he uses it on envy in the book and then explains it to Ramona. And in the movie, Ramona tells him about it and he uses it on Roxy. And I completely agree because in the book, when he does that, it just like
she just like falls
it
over.
like knocks her out, almost like a Vulcan neck pinch or something like that. But in the movie, they make it so that she literally orgasms to death is like seemingly what they're going for there, which I agree I was not a big fan of. And it gets to something we'll talk about later, which is just kind of the weird fetishization. Oh, I can never say that word. Fetishization of bisexuality generally, but just like the sexual politics of this movie and the stuff revolving around queerness and all of that is its own whole thing. And we're going to talk more about that later in the odds and ends and kind of get into some of those things. But I think this is one example of that where it's like, well, yes, sure. The one woman or who is an evil ex and who is bisexual, of course, she is defeated by something sexual and orgasming to death. It does feel like, okay, it feels a little I mean, it's exploitative and weird. Yeah. Completely agree.
I think that Scott getting into Ramona's purse and riding around in it like a little dog should have been in the movie.
I was so surprised when I saw that.
I was too. I was not. She has like a bag of holding.
Yes, she does.
In the books.
Yes, which also seems to access the subspace.
Yeah.
Kind of,
it's
maybe.
like a portal dimension bag of holding.
Yeah.
And at one point, I forget even who they're being attacked by.
I think they're fighting Roxy?
Maybe.
I think it's either Roxy or Envy. It's one of the two. It might be the Envy fight, maybe. That one where because I think it is the Envy fight, because in the Envy fight, where Ramona is fighting Envy, Ramona is using this big hammer, which is what we see Roxy using later in the movie. Roxy uses a big hammer or whatever. Anyways, I think it was in the Envy fight where it doesn't matter. But yes, in one of the fights, he hides in.
Yeah, she like tells him to get inside her purse, and she runs away, and he's like sticking out of it.
His like head is
like a chihuahua.
It's very funny. Yeah. There's this visual gag in the book that I thought was really funny. Is that they get tricked into going to this party to play like a concert, and it ends up being a trap by the Katayanagi twins in order for them to like defeat him or whatever. But we see the poster like that was advertising this party that they were going to be playing at. And this is all after the fact, after the party has happened and he got attacked by the robots at the party or whatever. Because in the book, there's all of the fights are much like more drug out, because a lot of them take place kind of over the course of like an entire book. Basically.
Yeah, we're kind of interacting with that X for the entirety of the book.
For some of them, yeah. And like in that one, for instance, there's like a bunch of like intermediary fights where they're sending like these robots after him to attack him or whatever. And one of them attacks him at the party, and the poster we see afterwards, they're like, oh, maybe we should have realized this was a setup. And they show the poster, and the poster just says, a robot will kick Scott Pilgrim's ass while you watch, which I thought was very funny. And it just has a drawing of a giant robot and Scott like with X's on his eyes or whatever. I thought that was a fun gag in the book. Scott and Ramona have, when they break up in the book series, one of the times they kind of have a falling out, they have this incredible, which is right after this party, actually, which is why I have this here, is him and Ramona and Kim get really drunk together, almost have a threesome, which just in there for no reason. Yeah. But they have this, Ramona and Scott go home and they're laying in bed together, and they have this incredibly painful drunk conversation where like Ramona calls him a bad person and alludes to breaking up, but they're both way too drunk to be having this conversation. And boy, it was slightly triggering, because I have been in moments like that in past lives where you are too intoxicated or whatever, and you're like having this horrible conversation, but you can't really even like they're like half falling asleep while they're doing it because and it's just, oh my God, it was so. I was like, this is something that Brian Lee O'Malley has done before. Like the way he captured that, that is clearly somebody who's experienced that before, because I thought the book captured it incredibly well. And there's not really anything like that in the movie. They do have a drunken fight in the movie, but it's at the bar, like right after the Roxy fight, and it's very short, and it's it doesn't nearly capture the same level of like awkward patheticness that the book does. I thought it was really funny that in one of the books, Scott drops in kind of a right after Ramona is like, well, we need to break up or whatever. Scott drops Backstreet Boys lyrics to try to in a last ditch attempt to stop Ramona from breaking up with him. I think this is in the 5th book, because that's the one right before they break up, I think. He bursts into the room as she's getting ready to like leave, and she's like sitting on the bed, and this is when she starts glowing and then disappears. Which in the book she can glow and disappear starting in book 5. That just comes out of nowhere. We'll talk about that later. But he busts in and he's like, Ramona, I love you, okay? I love you here and now. I don't care who you are or where you're from or what you do, as long as you love me. Is that NSYNC or Backstreet Boys? Whatever.
I couldn't even tell you.
It's one of whatever.
Yeah,
it's one of
them.
And I thought that was funny. I'm sure there are more lyric references throughout the books that I didn't catch, because I'm sure the music is like a huge running thing. But that was one that I did catch and I thought was funny.
Another thing that we both missed from the books was Gideon the cat.
Yes.
Ramona takes in a stray and names it Gideon.
Yes.
After her ex.
And she's like, look, this is how I process things, okay?
But there are some really cute scenes after they break up and
Gideon
Ramona leaves. Yeah, Gideon like gets out the window, and there are some really adorable scenes of Scott trying to like lure him back.
Yeah.
And like putting food out in the yard and just like sitting there watching.
One of in particular that I thought was really cute is that we get like a little montage of those scenes, and then in one of them, Gideon does show up, but he has like fallen asleep in the bushes and is just laying there asleep while Gideon is eating, and then disappears again. And I thought, I thought those scenes were fun. It also, I think, is meant to kind of illustrate the idea that, because a big part of the graphic novels and the movie is about maturing, growing up, realizing your faults, becoming a better person, all that sort of stuff. And I think the Gideon the cat subplot is, in relation to Scott, the Gideon the cat subplot is illustrating the fact that he's learns to take care of another creature, and initially he doesn't really like the cat or doesn't really care about the cat at all, and then the cat disappears and he realizes he wants the cat around, and he and then so he has to start trying to figure out how to like take care of it, and then it does finally show up, and so I thought that was I liked that subplot in the book. I understand why it's not in the movie. I don't know if there would be. I mean,
they're not broken up long enough in the movie really for that to happen.
Yeah. Because that's the other thing. In the book takes place over a lot longer of a time period than the movie does. The books do. They're at one point between like 5 and 6 when they break up. It's been months. It's multiple months between when they broke up and when book 6 starts. I mentioned earlier that Envy does not disappear from the story after her Todd is defeated in the books like she does in the movie. And there was this fun scene where she shows up in the big climax at the end. She's her band is performing at Gideon's club, and she makes her appearance by descending from the heavens dressed in this gigantic butterfly.
This like insane
butterfly costume. And I was like, man, we really missed out on not having Brie Larson descend from the heavens in that. Just any more of Brie Larson's Envy that we could have gotten in this movie would have been fine. But
a little moment in that like climax fight scene that made me actually like laugh out loud when Scott comes back to life.
Yes, because Scott has been stabbed and killed.
He gets stabbed and killed, and then he uses his bonus life that he got earlier, kind of similar to what we see in the movie. Similar-ish. He uses his bonus life and he like pops back to life inside the club. And when he does that, we see his sister Stacy on the phone saying, "Sorry, Mom, false alarm."
Yeah, because she had called the parents to inform them that Scott was dead, and then they're like, "Oh, never mind." She's like, "Never mind, it's fine." Which that would have been a funny gag in the movie. I'm surprised they didn't.
I honestly am.
Well, so we mentioned this in the prequel, but for people who don't know, this movie was released right around the time the 5th book came out and before the 6th book came out, like before the 6th book was even written.
Yeah, I think he was writing the 5th book like while they were making the movie,
and then the 6th book. So, and that happens obviously in the 6th book. So if they were going to put that in the movie, they would have had like maybe that's just something Brian Lee O'Malley thought of long after
I'm
the
sure,
movie was
yeah.
made. But it would have been very funny, and I think Anna Kendrick would have.
Oh, she would have killed that single line delivery.
Yeah. I thought this line was incredible in the graphic novel that doesn't make it in the movie. When they're fighting Gideon at the end, they team up. Ramona and Scott team up to defeat Gideon at the end. And they kind of have their big fight, and they have this back and forth. And towards the end of it, Gideon says to them, he goes, like, oh, you can defeat me, but that doesn't matter because you're your own worst enemies. And they both respond and go, no, I'm pretty sure you're worse, which I thought was very funny. And then they do this sick ass anime slice where they like, like both like rush through him and like slice him in half and cut him into pieces, which I thought was fun.
So the movie does a lot of like reconciliation work in the 11th hour during the climax.
It's the other, like the biggest weakness of the film is that all of that is crammed into like a big action climax at the end. It just feels very rushed.
And in particular, Scott's reconciliation with knives.
Yeah.
I understand why it's part of the climax in the movie because we don't have the benefit and space of 6 entire books worth of character development.
Yeah.
Particularly for knives, I think. But I'm not sure that it works as well as the movie like wants it to work.
Yes, I would agree with that. It's also, it depends on which part you're talking about. Are you talking about like when they're talking on the pyramid or whatever and he like apologized to her, or are you talking about afterwards, like when they're walking out and then she is like, go get her or whatever?
Honestly, all of it.
Yeah. Well, so one thing is that, and I think I mentioned this in the prequel, is that whole ending was reshot and changed because to be more in line with what the graphic novel ended up doing. The original ending for the movie, he ended up with knives, from my understanding.
And see, knowing that makes a lot of sense, like given the way that the climax goes down and the way that they like work together during it.
I think, to be fair, I think everything inside the club probably is from the original ending, if I had to guess. But then everything from when they leave the club and they're like walking down that alley, that was probably all reshoots, I think. Based on, because that would work because they're kind of, him and Knives are kind of together when they leave the club, and then it just immediately is like, oh, never mind. And I think that's the reshoot.
It also is like crazy to me that the movie decided to go that direction initially.
Have him be with knives?
Yeah,
crazy,
that's
insane,
wild.
The correct answer is nobody. If you're gonna like,
like the correct like narrative movie Hollywood ending is Ramona.
Sure. Yes, that's
but
like the traditional Hollywood ending.
The correct, like,
probably like best moral ending.
Best moral ending is no one.
Everybody's on their own, and because they all need to figure their shit out or whatever. Like that's probably the actual best ending. Is like Scott doesn't end up with anybody, and nobody ends up with anybody other than maybe some ancillary like secondary characters. But like Ramona, Knives, and Scott are all probably single at the end of this, and then maybe there's an inclination that like Scott and Ramona like are gonna go on a date or something, which is kind of what the movie's going for. I think is like, well, let's try again, which is that's how the graphic novel ends. But I agree with you. The whole ending with Knives is a mess. One thing I did really like though, even in the reshoot ending, is I did like having Knives kind of realize her self-worth in that ending by having her not end up with Scott when they're walking out, and then she's like, hey, what are you doing? Go get her or whatever. And then Scott goes after her. It's cheesy and like whatever. But I do like in that scene where Knives is like, I'm too cool for you anyway. And I think Knives at that point has realized that like this loser doesn't I shouldn't be with this guy. He shouldn't be with me. This isn't going to be a healthy relationship for a number of reasons. And so I liked that for her. But it does still lead to kind of a
I mean, absolutely. I like that line, and I'm glad that she has that realization in the movie. I just don't think that the movie was able to do any of the character work to believably get her to that point.
I would agree. Yeah. Whereas the book does kind of, we have a lot of extra scenes in there of her kind of, although I have my own issues with the whole way that her plot line. So many times in the book, which I don't think I have a note about this anywhere, there was a time where I'm like, I thought we had already resolved all this with Knives, and it felt like it was just being trudged back up again for no reason.
It really, yes, I totally
and I'm like,
agree.
Wait, didn't we already resolve all this? But now she's back as like a minor antagonist again, even though I thought we had already taken. And that, you don't have that issue in the movie, but it does. You have the opposite issue, which is just, it feels like we go from like, her being very hurt and trying to deal with her feelings to her just like getting over it and being fine like immediately, basically. But yeah,
I felt kind of similarly about Nega Scott in the movie.
Oh, I have a lot. Yeah.
I don't even really particularly have strong feelings about what the book does with Nega Scott, but I just don't think it works.
No, I agree. I agree. I think so. In the movie, the Nega Scott he defeats Gideon, and then Nega Scott, Nega, shows up, which is like negative Scott, like he's like the
and it's a reference to
Scott,
earlier when they were playing the arcade game.
Yes, in the movie,
in the movie, the Nega Ninja or whatever shows up, and Scott's like, "Oh, I can never defeat this guy."
Yes, whereas in the books, we have seen this mysterious figure, dark figure, following Scott a few times over the course. I was reading some stuff about Nega Scott on like Reddit and stuff, and people were implying that he was way more set up than I felt like he actually was. Because I feel like he only kind of shows up like once or twice, like in the book right before.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think
that's also my memory of it.
I don't think he's seated as much as maybe some people think he was, but whatever. But in the movie, Nega Scott shows up. He is like the evil alter ego of Scott, basically. And in the movie, the joke is that like he has to fight him and defeat him. He's the final boss. And then it just cuts and they're walking out together like friends. They're like buddy, which is a funny gag.
Yes.
And kind of works in its own way, alluding to a similar thing that the book gets at. But I do really prefer the book's version, because in the book, Nega Scott shows up while Scott, at one point, Scott goes on a wilderness retreat up to the north. Kim has left Toronto to go back to her parents or whatever, to get away from everything. And he goes to visit her and get away from it himself. And while he's up there out in the wilderness, he encounters Nega Scott, who is his evil, alter ego. And this is in the 5th book, I think, or maybe the beginning of the 6th book. I think
it's in the 6th book.
I think it's the beginning of the 6th book. And in the book, what ends up happening is they don't just become friends. He actually fuses. Scott fuses with
accepts
Scott.
His shadow self.
He accepts his shadow self. And when he does that, he then remembers and recognizes all of the bad shit he's done, because there's been a running kind of gag / thing in the book that whenever people talk about like Scott's past, he only remembers positive things.
Yes.
And he has like a rosy view of his past.
Yes, a very selective memory.
Or he just says he doesn't remember that at all. Like when so he has this very selective / rose-colored view of his past. And when he fuses with Nega Scott, he then remembers and he is like realizes all of the bad things he's done. It is the symbolism of him coming to terms with the fact that he has been a bad person in the past, that he has done shitty things, and that he needs to embrace those. He can't hide from them. He can't ignore them. And so he fuses with Nega Scott. And it is kind of the most important thematic thing.
I would honestly say, yes, it is maybe the most important thematic moment.
Yes.
In the books.
Yeah. And now I will say, I was reading a subreddit thing about this, and people were dumping on the movie for saying that the movie just completely gets rid of all of that, and Scott faces no kind of self-reflection or anything that like he does in the book. And I don't think that's true. I think the movie absolutely tries to have Scott take responsibility and apologize and do all of the things that he does in the book after he fuses with Nega Scott and realizes all of these things about himself. In the movie, that happens after he dies and comes back and then goes back through everything. He realizes he needs to take responsibility, and he apologizes to Kim. He apologizes to Ramona and Knives.
Yeah.
They don't find out about him cheating from Knives saying it or whatever. He tells them, and he does take ownership of his problems, but it doesn't have like the same kind of thematic resonance that the book does with that moment where he fuses and realizes all of this stuff about himself. It all happens very quickly in the movie, and it just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess he realizes he needs to be a better person now, like because he died or like it's not nearly as fleshed out as the book.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, considering when the last two books were written, like because we don't even know like what Brian Lee O'Malley had planned.
Yes. He clearly had, because what we know in the making of the movie, and I'm sure this has gone into much more detail. There's the 20th anniversary Blu-ray and stuff or 10th anniversary Blu-ray or whatever came out a few years ago, and I'm sure there's documentaries and stuff in there talking about like what they knew for the ending, because supposedly Brian Lee O'Malley was very involved in the making of the movie, and gave them notes like, here's what I'm kind of planning for the ending. You know, I have like this idea where he has to confront Nega Scott. Like, so I'm sure they had like, okay, he's got to have this confrontation with Nega Scott, but maybe Brian Lee O'Malley didn't really know what that looked like yet. He just knew he wanted to have that confrontation. And that at that point he realizes probably literally what he might have said is he has this confrontation with Nega Scott and realizes that he needs to embrace that part of himself. And they're like, okay, well, let's have him be friends I can see them getting to that.
I could see that. Yes, absolutely.
Like getting to what the movie does in kind of a roundabout way based on like a loose interpretation of what maybe he thought he might do in the graphic novel.
And who knows, maybe he thought he might do that and then changed his mind.
Yeah. But 100%, it is much better in the book, that confrontation and just the like I said, just the way he comes to that realization.
Like it is much more thematically resonant.
Yes. Which it's definitely the way, but we'll get to this more later. I have more notes about it. It still doesn't work that well, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All that being said, it's not like the movie's version is like a huge butchering of this incredibly profound character
It
arc.
works a little better.
It works a little better in the graphic novel. And also I think people undersell how much the movie does depict Scott learning and growing. I think you forget it in all of the chaos of the end of the movie. You kind of forget that Scott does go in and take responsibility and say, no, I suck. I'm sorry. I did that. Like, he does do all that stuff. It's just done very quickly in Edgar Wright style. And then we fight a bunch more. So it's like, okay, it doesn't have kind of the same time to breathe and the resonance that the graphic novel does. So I agree with that. And like I said, it is the biggest kind of flaw of the film compared to the movie, in my opinion.
Speaking of room to breathe, another thing I appreciated in the graphic novels was that Scott, we see him eventually mature enough to get and keep a job.
Yes. Yeah. He gets a job as like a washing dishes.
Yeah, he gets a job washing dishes.
Steven Still's restaurant.
And then at the end of the 6th volume, it seems like he's either moved up or they started their own thing.
Yeah, something
I would have to go back.
I think it's the same restaurant. It looked like to me, but yeah.
But he's like moved up from being a dishwasher by the end. He's doing like line prep or something like that.
Yeah.
And my final note here is that I really liked the moment in the final battle in the book where Ramona stands up to Gideon.
Yeah. I do wish that we had gotten that.
Yeah, I think that final climax, and knowing what the original ending was going to be, obviously this was in service of setting up like Scott and Knives.
Yeah.
We kind of shortchanged Ramona during that last scene. She gets like pushed to the side.
Yeah.
Damsel in distress. But in the books, she stands up to him. And a line that I particularly liked was, part of me does still feel like I belong to you, but the other parts of me are finished with you.
Yeah, I loved that part. And there's a great visual with that. It's because they're in like the subspace highway in her bag or whatever. And there are all these different versions of Ramona standing behind her as she says that, which I thought was really powerful and really cool. And that is maybe the other big criticism of the movie, is that Ramona it's interesting because I have opinions both way. There are things I like more about Ramona in the movie than I do in the book, but she is a much less dynamic character in the movie than she is in the book. Like, she is not And she's partially because she's just given less time. And to be fair, the movie is about Scott. It is not about Ramona. She is a main character, but she is not, it's about him and about his character arc and his growth. That being said, I do think that she ends up being a bit of a prop in that final act of the movie in a way that she's also kind of that in the book, but she gets a little bit more of time to shine for herself in the books than she does in the movie. So. All right, those are all of our notes for better in the books. It's time now to find out what we thought was better in the movie.
My life has taught me one lesson, Hugo, and not the one I thought it would. Happy endings only happen in the movies.
Right off the bat, close to the beginning of the movie, a line that I really thought was funny.
Yes, I had the same.
When Knives first goes to band practice, she sits down on the couch next to young Neil and says, "What do you play?"
Yeah.
Meaning an instrument.
Yeah, what
she thinks
instrument?
he's like in the band.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, Zelda, Tetris." It's kind of a big question.
Kind of a big question. I had that same note. That's kind of a big question. Got me so. I'd forgotten that joke. I'd forgotten that line. And boy, yeah, it sent me. During that same scene, this leads right into the opening credits, and there's this incredible camera move there where they start playing, and Knives is just like blown away. But then we get this incredible dolly back, as I don't know if it can't be a practical effect, I don't think, but the camera dollies back and the living room, like it's starting on like a wide shot of the band, and the camera dollies backwards and the living room like stretches.
Yes, it looks really cool.
100 feet long, and then we get like Knives and Neil sitting on the couch, like pull into frame, and it's just such a cool shot. And it's like I was like, oh yeah, man, I knew this. So as I've said, I've watched this movie a bunch back in the day. I haven't seen it in probably at least 5 years. I don't remember the last time I watched it. But holy shit, this movie just has the sauce. Like it, and then we punch into the opening credits with the music, and it's just from moment one, the movie is on the gas pedal all the way, and it's just incredible.
Scott's whole thing with Pac-Man, Puck-Man.
Yes.
And him like telling this story to Knives and getting it out all suave, and then he tries to do the same thing to Ramona, and he just can't pull it off. She's not impressed by him.
Yes. Yeah, I had the same thing because that is not in the book at all. Either with Knives or Ramona. In the movie or in the book with Ramona, he talks about like her shoes or something like that. But I love it because it's that perfect annoying trivia thing that it's the exact kind of fun fact that obnoxious nerds learn that they think will impress other people. And it does, it works on a 17-year-old, but it does not work. And he realizes, he even knows going in it's not going to work, which is why he falls all over himself when he's trying to use it on Ramona, because like, why would she care? But it is that exact kind of obnoxious nerd thing that you learn and think you can impress people with. And I'm not saying I've been guilty of doing that in the past, but I may have been guilty of doing that in the past.
I think you've either been that person or you've been on the receiving end of that, or maybe you've been both.
Yes.
There's another little moment in the movie that I think does a lot of heavy lifting character work up really early, when Scott and Knives are playing. They're
at the arcade. Yeah.
They're at the arcade, and they're playing. It's not
Dance Dance Revolution, but it's like a fighting game version of Dance Dance
it's a similar
Revolution.
style game,
but it's like a fighting game. Yeah.
And the game ends, and he gestures for Knives to put more money into the game because he's like this perpetually broke loser slacker.
Yeah.
And it tells us so much in just like 3 seconds.
Yes. Absolutely. And the fact that she like immediately is like, oh yeah, of course. Like she's just wants to please him and is willing to do anything to make him happy and blah, blah, blah. And he is just this loser who, pathetic loser. Exactly. I also love this little detail is we in the book, Knives, or Scott does show Knives like where he grew up. He like takes her, or it might be Ramona in the book. He shows one of them. I think it's Knives. He shows her where he grew up, and he takes her to his house, which is just somewhere in Toronto or whatever. But in the movie, we have the exact same scene, but they make the note of they go to his apartment.
Yeah.
They like walk after the arcade. They walk to his apartment, and she's like, "Well, can I go inside and see it?" And he's like, "No, it's kind of like a no girls allowed space or whatever." And he goes, "Do you want to see where I grew up though?" And she goes, "Yeah." And he just turns around and he goes, "That's it." And it's the house literally right across the street, which again does so much work to explain the kind of person Scott is. Such a fun gag highlighting the Arrested Development, pun intended there. Incredible casting on that regard. Michael Cera in Arrested Development.
Yeah.
But yeah, highlighting his Arrested Development that he has not grown, he has not changed.
He walked across the street.
He moved out of his parents' house and moved in right across the street because that's where he's at in life right now.
Yeah, where he basically loafs off of his friend's generosity.
Yes.
Speaking of, I love that then when we meet Wallace in this scene, other Scott is in bed with him.
Yes. Yeah, which other Scott does show up eventually in the books as a boyfriend of Wallace, I think. But yeah, I liked introducing him right away here and just having him like pop up in bed with them. Because they share Scott and Wallace share a bed because they're so broke, and they don't have room for another bed as well because their apartment is so small.
Well, funny, I realized while we were rewatching this movie that I had friends in college who lived in this exact same apartment,
like style apartment,
apartment,
like a mattress on the floor that they share.
It was not on the floor. They didn't have an actual bed, probably because it was 2 women and not 2 men.
Yeah.
But they lived. Shout out Lori and Alexa. Lived in like a basement, like a 1-room basement apartment. And they shared a bed because there was only room for 1 bed.
I also lived in a 1-room basement apartment, but I was by myself. So. Yeah. When Scott goes to the party in the movie, he's trying to find Ramona because he knows she's supposed to be there. Like he'd heard that she's going to be at this party.
Yeah.
And so he's going around asking people, but he asks Como, who's one of the obnoxious in the movie. He's the guy with the glasses who's always saying something obnoxious.
Yeah.
And like,
and it took me that entire scene to figure out where I knew his face from. He was in New Girl.
Yes, yeah, he's one of the people in New Girl. He's shown up in a handful of things over the years, that actor. Scott goes up to him and is like, "Do you know this girl?" And he holds up a drawing of Ramona. And I read in the when I was doing research for the prequel notes, and I don't think I included this, but I read that originally he was supposed to hold up a drawing of Ramona from the graphic novel, like a drawing that looked like her in the graphic novel. But then I think Michael Cera drew that drawing of her, and it's ridiculous if you've seen the movie.
Just like a scribble.
Yeah, and they thought that was so funny that they just used that instead. But I love that he holds it up, and Como still knows who it is. He goes, "Oh yeah, that's Ramona," and I just thought that was so funny. The movie kind of nailed this, but I thought it actually improved it just because of the way it's edited and shot and everything. But when they get to one of the shows, it's the first show where Knives and Ramona are both there, where he's like, "Hey, come to my show," and he realizes he invited both of the girls he's kind of dating to the same show. And they show up, and there's this big moment in both the book and the movie where they like get there, and Knives shows up and like kisses Scott right after he just introduced Ramona to everybody as like his friend or whatever. He hasn't said they're dating, but they have this big standoff where like Knives kisses him, and then like Ramona looks at Knives, and then like and everybody in the scene just like looks at each other, like figuring out what is going on here. Like Stacy and Wallace and all of them like look around, and they're like parsing what is happening here. And it's incredibly fun. It's funny in the graphic novel, but it's the exact same thing where we get a bunch of these close-ups, like almost like an Old West shootout, like a standoff, like we get these like super tight close-ups of all their eyes as they like look around at each other and like try to see who realizes what is going on here. And I thought the movie nailed it, but also elevated it which I have that note a lot, which is just, we'll get to it later, but yeah.
I really appreciated that the movie immediately sets up Gideon and the Chaos Theater, and we just like go straight into this Battle of the Bands kind of plot line.
Yes.
Because one of the worst things about this series was how much it meanders.
Oh, yes. Yeah, 100%. Which I'm sure I could imagine not minding Maybe if I was reading this in high school or something,
Yeah.
maybe I would
Or
care
if I was
less.
like reading them as they came out and I like it was like a year later and I was
Right.
like, oh boy, time for a new Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
I would probably, but like reading them all back to back,
Yeah.
that was rough.
There is a lot of just like, we're just kind of doing this now. It does meander a lot. And you, in a way that it feels like killing time sometimes.
Yes, absolutely.
Which I don't think it is. I don't think that's, I don't think. I'm confident that wasn't like what he was doing, but it does kind of come off that way. Especially having seen the movie first, where you're like, all right, we can get through this a little quicker. But I agree. I thought setting up, making their show, because there is no Battle of the Bands thing in the book. That's not in any of the books. That's not a thing. There might be like one at some point, but it's not a recurring thing like it is in the movie.
Yeah, the movie kind of uses that as like a background structure.
To set up why they keep running into these bands and why they keep having shows. And it sets up Gideon, because the whole premise is that Gideon is going to get, well, they call him G-Man at this point. He's not Gideon
we
yet.
don't know he's Gideon yet.
Yeah, he's just G-Man, but he's this producer who is going to give the winner of this Battle of the Bands tournament a record deal. So that's kind of sets up our big bad without us really knowing, and gives us a goal that we're working towards. I think it gives a lot of structure that helps quite a bit. A little detail in the movie that I thought was hilarious is that at this first show, Neil, who is not part of the band, he's like the roadie / groupie tag along.
He's their
guy.
biggest fan.
He is their biggest fan. He is sitting in the wings as they're playing their first song in the movie, Garbage Truck. And he's like sitting on an amp, like singing along, and he gets the lyrics wrong, which is such a funny little gag. This guy who is like the one person who's around and has heard all of their songs 8 million times because he literally like lives with them or whatever. I think he lives with Steven at the time. It's maybe Steven and Kim, I can't remember. But yeah, he gets the lyrics wrong and he's like, oh shit. And I just thought that's so funny. A little detail that I thought was a very, very subtle change, but I prefer in the movie. I could also understand somebody preferring the book's version, but I like that in the book, everybody is just immediately on board and nonplussed by Scott suddenly like fighting people to the death in the middle of like a concert or whatever. And they're like immediately like, oh, that guy's here to fight Scott. He's going to get his ass kicked because Scott's the best fighter around. They act like this is a thing that just happens and like is normal. The movie also does that, but it adds a slight layer where they're initially a little confused and then they're like, whatever. And then they just go on with it. That I thought added a layer of like comedy and also brought us as an audience, like it acknowledged our confusion briefly.
And then,
like, okay, but
brings
this
us
is just
along
how
for
it
the ride.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I never in a million years would I have bought Michael Cera being described as the best fighter in the province.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
Yeah. And when they say that in the book, you're just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
He's the best. Why would he be the best fighter? We have no reason. Like, and we don't ever really even get any backstory of him, why he would be a good fighter.
No. There is one of like part of the backstory with Kim.
Yes.
We find out, I forget what book it's in, that he has to like fight a bunch of guys because she's been kidnapped, and he like fights all these guys and then fights this other guy to get Kim back. But then like and later on in the 6th book, we find out that maybe that's not actually really what happened.
Yeah.
So unclear on that backstory still.
Yeah, which is fine because the movie doesn't go into it either. The movie, he's the best fighter in the world, and they never explain why. And I don't need them to explain why. It's fine. It's the premise of the thing.
Because the story really just like you have to commit to this like kind of video game sensibility where there are just like boss fights for no real reason.
But like I said, I did appreciate that in the movie we get shots of like Stacy and Julie and stuff being like, and Ramona like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here? Well, not Ramona. She knows what's going on. Yeah, but everybody else like, what's going on here? Whereas in the book, they just seem like, oh yeah, this is normal. And that brings me to a thing that is better, a broad thing that is better in the movie, which is just the fight scenes. And I say that it's a very slim thing because the movie literally just captures all of the best frames from the graphic novel fights and then makes them move, basically.
Yeah.
Like all of the best still like so many of the fights in the book are just visually translated directly into the movie, but then we get all of the rest of the fight that was around that single page or whatever of like a cool action pose or something. We get that cool action pose, but then we get the rest of the fight that goes with it. And it's all really cool fight choreography. I talked about in the prequel that the fight team was two of the people from like Jackie Chan's fight choreography team, which you can tell. I could tell because I was like, I know a lot of these moves from Jackie Chan movies. I recognize these from seeing these in Jackie Chan movies. But it's really good choreography. It's really fun. It's shot really cool. Like, which is, we'll get more to that later. Everything is shot cool in this movie. It's, of any of this movie's flaws, it not being shot well is not one of them. It is just masterfully shot. But some of the fight scenes are just incredibly cool, and I really like the way they mix like stunt doubles with like actually Michael Cera, and like it's very seamless in terms of like there are times where I'm like, is that actually Michael Cera doing all of that?
Yeah.
Because he's doing some of it, and because he did a lot of training for it and stuff. But then other times you can tell, well, clearly that's not Michael Cera when he's doing all these flips and stuff. But the way they edit it together to make it like they do a lot of like cowboy switches and stuff like that, I think, where they're which is just a thing where like somebody goes out of frame for a second and then the other person comes in and like, so it's like a stunt double briefly and then it's not a stunt double and all that kind of things. And I just every fight scene is so much fun and so well choreographed that as good as they're still a lot of fun to read and look at in the graphic novel, but it's hard to compare to like watching them in the movie, in my opinion. A little gag in that first fight scene with Matthew Patel that I thought was funny is that after they're having all this conversation, and this happens in the book, where Scott turns to Ramona, who's sitting up in the balcony, and is like, "You really went out with this guy?" And she explains the backstory in both the book and the movie, but in the movie there's this fun additional gag where when he says that to her, whoever's on the lighting system at this concert swings a big spotlight around onto Ramona, and you hear like the creak of the lights spinning around and on her face, which is just a very fun little gag. And then I think it's right after that, but after one night of partying or something, Scott is laying at home in bed, and Wallace gets home from whatever club or whatever he was at drunk. And that scene happens in the book very, very similarly, including him like falling drunk into bed. But there's this one specific moment in the movie that cracks me up every time where he just hucks his keys at Scott and they just hit him in the fucking head while he's laying in bed. And I don't know what it is about that, but the way Kieran Culkin acts that scene cracks me the fuck up every time, the way he just launches those keys at Michael Cera's head.
A little visual that I loved, shortly before Scott breaks up with Knives, they're out like at a thrift store and she says, "I'm in love," or something like that. And the word love like clouds out of her mouth.
Book. The cloud, the love cloud word, yes. But then,
But then he like fans it away from him. He's like, oh.
Yeah. Because it's right before he breaks up with her. Yeah. And then, well, it's actually not right before he breaks up. I think it's the scene before. But then at one point they go to the arcade, and again, this is the kind of classic Edgar Wright like environmental joke storytelling stuff that he does so well that it's like no other writer director, in my opinion, like does this, at least not that I've seen, the way he does, where he incorporates this kind of stuff. And maybe some people don't care about it or think, I think it's really fun and clever, but they're back at the arcade playing, and this is right after that love scene, I think, and he's like thinking about breaking up with her, and they're at the arcade playing the game, and we get they get defeated by the Nega Ninja or whatever again, and the continue timer is counting down on the game, and it's like, would you like to continue? 10, 9. And this is at the exact moment where Scott is contemplating breaking up with her. And so he's thinking about it, and the game is like, would you like to continue? And it's just those kind of little details. It's just, I'm like, God, it's just so brilliant. And again, I don't know.
It's genuinely fun storytelling.
Yes, it's just like, oh my God, it's so clever. It's so, and it's just, like, and that's one of those things, like, even if you don't like the story, you have to appreciate, in my opinion, like, even if you don't like Scott and you don't like his arc and you think like whatever, all of that stuff, things like that. I don't know how you can watch that and be like, meh, like whatever. Like that stuff is so clever and so like it's just such a clever way to tell a story and to like incorporate. It's so much fun. And I love stuff like that. And good Lord, every Edgar Wright movie is full of shit like that. It's one of those things where Edgar Wright is always his movies are always ones that benefit from seeing them several times, because a lot of that stuff you will never, there's stuff that I didn't notice. I have a note about here in a minute. There's stuff that I never noticed. I've seen this movie a dozen times. There's stuff I noticed this time that I didn't notice a dozen times before when I saw it. So one of which was, and I don't think I ever noticed this watching the movie, but
I didn't notice this until I read your note.
Yeah, it does happen, and it doesn't happen in the graphic novels. At least I didn't notice it, which is that at one point we see Ramona skating. She rollerblades everywhere.
Yeah, to do her deliveries.
But they're in Toronto, and there's snow all on the ground a lot of the time, and I never really thought about it. But in the movie, we see this moment where she's talking to Scott and she needs to leave, and she rollerblades away, and wherever she rollerblades, the snow melts underneath her.
Yeah.
Which I thought was just a fun little detail, because you're thinking about like, how is she rollerblading around a snow-covered Toronto? Well, there you go. She melts the snow everywhere she goes. The little Seinfeld parody in the movie does not come from the book and is fun. It's a 10-second little bit in the movie where Scott comes in to the Seinfeld theme, and there's like this, it's a very sitcom-y moment that I thought was a lot of fun, where he's like bragging about getting to second place with Ramona, and Wallace is just like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? This is one of the things that I had never noticed watching this movie that I did this time, is that we were introduced to Lucas Lee, who is the second Evil X, played by Captain America himself.
Yeah, Chris Evans.
Chris Evans. And he's introduced in this by Wallace is watching one of his movies on TV, because Wallace has a crush on him because he's this hot movie star, and he's going to be in Toronto filming a movie, but he's watching this movie. And in the movie that we see in the movie that he's watching on his TV is Lucas Lee is like in this phone booth, and it's this action scene where he like dials with his gun, and then like the camera does this big 360 dolly around the phone booth as he like picks up the phone and is like, I'm coming to get you, like this badass whatever. He delivers this big badass line, and then it cuts from that, and because Scott, and we see that as Scott is leaving to like go somewhere. Scott then leaves, and then we cut to Scott in a phone booth calling knives.
Yes.
And we get the exact same camera move that we just saw. And I didn't ever even notice that. They do the exact same camera move with Scott that they did with again. I'm sorry. I can't do this forever. people, this is my first time I've gotten to talk about a Scott or an Edgar Wright movie on Maine on here. We talked about whatchamacallit in a bonus episode, Last Night in Soho, which is a far less Edgar Wright movie.
This movie I feel like is peak Edgar Wright.
It 100% is. It is, yeah, absolutely. But also another thing that's better in the movie, and we'll have it here, is basically everything with Lucas Lee is better in the movie. Pretty much every single bit of it. But starting with his introduction in the movie, he is introduced by him getting on there. They go up to Castle Loma, which is this real castle in Toronto, which is in the book, and that staircase is right there near that castle, that big long staircase in Toronto. Both of those are in the book, and the movie set takes place in the exact same spot. He's filming a movie there, and in the movie we see him come out of his trailer, and it's set to the Universal opening theme, and he like cracks his neck in time with the Universal like drums or whatever.
The neck crack killed me.
It's so good. It just, again, little things like that. I don't know how you can't watch this movie and just laugh your ass. Like, how do you not love that? How? I don't get it. It's so good. And then I love there's a little joke where they're filming and they're all standing there like watching in the crowd, and they're filming, and then all of a sudden Lucas Lee starts like pointing into the crowd and yelling, and he's yelling at Scott, and Scott's like, wait a second, is he talking to me? and Wallace is like, yeah, I think so, and he's like, he's famous and he talked to me. And it's so good.
A big thing in this scene that's not from the books is the addition of a stunt double team for Lucas
Yes.
Lee,
Oh my
and I
God.
thought that was
Incredible.
fantastic.
Such a funny gag. Yeah, the whole stunt double fight, because in the movie or in the book, it's just him. And there's not
Mhm.
even, it doesn't even seem like they say he's filming a movie. He's there to film a movie, but in the graphic novel, he's just like sitting on a bench, like when they
Yeah.
get, he's just like there.
He's just like there.
You're like, oh, what? Okay. Whereas this, he's clearly filming a movie. And yeah, the whole stunt double fight, he has to fight all of his stunt doubles, but in particular, I was dying at the line. The way they introduce the stunt doubles is like he's standing there and Scott is like yelling at him and like following him. They were fighting briefly or something or arguing, and then like Lucas Lee starts walking away from him, and Scott's like chasing after him to like yell at him, and he turns him around and it's a different guy, and he's like, wait, what? And then Chris Evans shows up and goes, that's my stunt double. Sometimes I let him do the wide shots when I feel like getting blazed in my Winnie, which is such a funny fucking line. Oh my God, it's so good. And then the fights do end similarly. There's a lot more of the fight in the movie. But the way they end is very similar, which is that Scott does goad him into grinding down this ridiculous set of rails that is a real staircase in Toronto. But they add this little detail in the movie where he's like, you think you can do a grind on that thingy over there or whatever? And he's like, man, these rails are garbage or whatever. And he's like, well, if you can't do it, you can't do it. And he's like, look, man, I could do it. And then Scott goes, there are girls watching. And there's this quick little moment where, because Lucas Lee is looking at Scott and he goes, there are girls watching. And he just quickly, his eyes shift up into the distance and then back down to Scott. And he's like, all right. And there's like this heartbeat sound effect when he does that little eye shift. It's brilliant. It's perfect. I love it.
A little detail I enjoyed in the movie, when Ramona finally gives Scott her phone number, she hands him a piece of paper and there are 7 X's underneath her phone number.
Yeah. Yes, and I had just generally, there's a bunch of X imagery in the movie that shows up before the X's ever even do, and that's one of them. But we see this one like kind of aerial shot of Scott walking home, and there's like this X path in the snow that he's walking through. There's another one where we see him walking down the street, and there's like these I think he might be walking past a railroad or something, but there's like these street light things hanging up that have these like yellow X's on them. And there's a bunch of those throughout the movie where we get this X imagery kind of setting up what is coming a little bit. A little gag that is in the movie that just is not in the book at all is he's standing there talking to Wallace in their apartment, and he's at their refrigerator, and he's like, they have a bunch of magnets on their refrigerator, and he's I think he's depressed because I don't remember exactly why he's upset right now, but he's upset about something, and he's talking to Wallace. He's like, you know what sucks? And he has written SUX with like the little letter magnets on the refrigerator. He's like, you know what sucks? And Wallace is like, what, man? And he goes, everything. And he slides in a sideways 8 underneath the sucks, which is crack me the fuck up, man. It's just it's the rapidity and the density of like the jokes in this movie. It's insane. Like it's every scene is just like packed full of gags and jokes and stuff that you might not even notice, and it's just it's crazy.
Speaking of another little moment in the movie that never fails to make me laugh is when Scott, he dives out the window when Knives shows up at the apartment.
Yes. Wallace
answers the door, and we're seeing Wallace from the perspective of Knives.
Yes, and we see Scott in the background briefly, like laying in bed or whatever. And then Wallace kind of shuts the door and it hides Scott. And then she's like, is Scott here? And he goes, no, he just left. And then Scott goes diving through the background through the window. Or it might be vice versa. He might dive through the window and then he says, actually, he just left. But oh my God, it's so fucking funny. That I'm pretty sure is a cowboy switch where we see Michael Cera, and then when the door gets shut, there's a stunt person hiding behind who then dives out the window.
Nice.
But yeah, oh God, it's so funny.
Another little line that I loved, we find out that Clash at Demon Head is doing a secret show.
Yes.
And Sex Bob-Omb is going to open for them.
Yeah.
But on the subject of secret show, I think Steven Stills or somebody is like, we should do a secret show. And I think
It's
Kim goes, all our shows are secret shows.
Yeah. It's great. It's great. A little gag in the movie that kind of runs through the film that I thought was funny, which kind of comes from the book, is that in the book, Wallace has a different boyfriend every time he shows up, and sometimes that includes stealing other boys from other characters. Like which happens in the movie is that he steals Jimmy from Julie or what? I think he's there with Julie. Or
I think it's Stacy.
It might be Stacy, yeah. He's there with Stacy, and then Wallace ends up like taking him home or whatever. But in the book, they turn this into like Wallace creating this polycule.
Yes.
Like, because as he collects boyfriends, they stick around. And so then we got that gag at the beginning where he wakes up in bed with other Scott. Then we get a gag later in the movie where they wake up in bed and other Scott sits up and then Jimmy sits up and you're like, oh, okay, it's just this growing thing. Yeah, it's funny.
I love that in the movie, Knives literally dyes her hair the same color as Ramona.
Yes.
Because she does put like a streak in her hair in the book,
but we don't know. It's all
in black and white. And I think they actually might say like she just bleaches it or something. I don't know if she dyes it or not. But she dyes it the exact shade of blue that Ramona has.
Yeah. Apparently, my coworker today was telling me, who's a big fan of both the movie and the graphic novels, but particularly the movie. He said they did release color versions of these at some point, supposedly, is what he said. But ours are all in black and white, except I think the fifth one starts in color. No, the fourth one. One of them starts like the first few pages in color.
Yeah, there are some chunks of for
the fourth
color.
One. And that was the only one for me, was the beginning of the fourth one.
I thought there was some in the sixth one too, but maybe I'm misremembering.
Yeah. There's this great little scene where Knives is spying on the band from outside the window after Scott breaks up with her. And this was and it's the exact same. This is basically a movie nailed it, because that scene is in the book where we get this shot of Knives like staring in the window, like stalking them. But in the movie, there's an addition. At least I don't think it was in the book. I couldn't find it, or at least I didn't remember it being there. Where in the movie, right before the reveal of Knives peering in the window, they're talking about how they need fans or whatever, and Steven Stills is like, you know what we need? We need stalkers. And then it just like cuts down, and Knives is like staring in the window. So good. And then we get to the best scene in the movie.
The best scene in the entire movie, the Black Sheep performance.
It's so good.
It's so fucking good.
It's so good. It's insane. It's insane how good this whole scene is. Every single thing about the scene is incredible. The setup, obviously leading into it, we know it's like building into this big moment. But then as the music starts playing, the intro to the song is Envy Adams singing "Oh Yeah" over and over again, and then we're cutting back and forth between Envy and Todd and Scott and Ramona as it dawns on everybody in the room, but specifically Scott and Ramona, that Todd, who is the bass player, which was alluded to earlier, that she had dated a Todd, but she didn't realize, oh shit, this is the Todd that she dated.
Yep,
He is
same
Todd. He is now dating Envy. And the editing, the cutting back and forth with the music and the setup and the performances by everybody, the way Brandon Ruth is staring daggers at them when he's playing bass, as they're like, he's staring at them in the crowd just with this animosity, and then the cutting back and forth, and then like she's singing "Oh Yeah" and Scott's like, "Oh no" in the crowd, and then it kicks into the actual song, and holy shit, Brie Larson's performance is like incredible.
I mean, I don't necessarily, I like Brie Larson.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily consider her like a crush of mine.
Yeah.
But this scene, be still my beating heart.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh my God.
She's so good in it, and the performance is great. I actually went today and watched, because as we mentioned in the prequel, like this whole song there, you can just watch. They have a whole performance of it, because in the movie, when they were shooting the movie, some of the songs, like 4 or 5 of them, they recorded the entire song as a performance just so they could release them later and stuff. And this is one of them, and it's just incredible. And the song was written by a band called The Metric or Metric.
Yeah.
Written for the movie, and the song, like Envy Adams, is based on the lead singer of that band Metric. But it's just incredible. Her performance is great. They have a version of it too, but they actually have Brie Larson's version of it on their YouTube page, on Metric's YouTube page, which is great. But yeah, it's one of the best, like, musical, I don't even know how to describe it. It's one of the best scenes in the movie, and it's unlike any other scene in just the way the way it builds and everything about it and the energy. It's so fucking good. I love it so much. I kind of alluded to this earlier, but one thing that I like that the movie does get rid of, while it does kind of flatten Ramona's character a little bit and kind of shortchange her, especially in the third act, and kind of pulls away a little bit of her agency at times, what it does do that I liked is that it gets rid of some of her weird, like, jealousy and stuff that the book has. In the book, she's a much more jealous and, like, she has a lot more ups and downs than she does. She's a lot more of a, like, kind of monotone character in the movie, but in a way that I think works. In the book, there are times where she's just like, she gets real weird about Envy here, which I think this is actually what leads into the fight between her and Envy in the books. But just like the way she acts about Envy and stuff, I just thought was like, I don't know. I just didn't like it. Maybe, to be fair, I'm probably comparing to like the version of her from the movie that I had seen a bunch of time, where she's this very, like, kind of calm and collected, but everything is under there's a lot of inner turmoil with her character that you can sense in the movie. Like, you can tell she's not, like, perfectly calm and chill all the time, but she always portrays that on the outside, that she is, like, this very, like, calm, chill person. Whereas in the book, she, like, has moments where she does just kind of, like, freak out and, like, yell at people and be weird. And I don't know. It's a little thing. I just, something about the way she is characterized in the book, I just didn't like as much, but I can understand people disagreeing with that. For sure.
I liked the base battle. You said that they had one in the book. They do. I memory wiped that.
It's not nearly as long, but there is a brief one in the book.
But the movie cuts out this whole plot line with Todd and Envy and, like, a race through a discount store.
Oh yeah.
That
it's because they fight.
Understand.
Yes, that whole thing, streamlining the Todd fight and the Envy, the whole deal in the movie, I thought was a really good decision.
Yeah.
Because in the book, they fight at the concert initially, then they stop and take a break, and then schedule to have another fight the next day at this Big Ed's, Honest Ed's store thing.
Yeah.
Which I had to look this up. This is was a real thing in Toronto. It's kind of like a cultural landmark kind of thing. It was this weird bargain store that sold all kinds of weird stuff that people just thought was really interesting and neat. It's been closed forever and gotten rid of because it just didn't survive in the modern environment of how shopping and stuff works. But it's this weird, like, very unique store. But we get this, like, for somebody who doesn't know what that store is and, like, what the whole deal with it is, it's in the book, it's presented as, like, this weird meta joke about the existential horror of Honest Ed's and, like, the weird consumerism of it, I think, or something. There's, like, again, like, because Todd gets in there and has, like, a mental breakdown because of the store, or so. I don't even. Yeah, it's all very confusing.
I'm not sure even, like, what I would draw a comparison to.
The closest thing I could think would be maybe something like Big Lots, but, like, a more crazy version, or like a Ben Franklin, but, like, a crazier version of a Ben Franklin. I don't know if people know what a Ben Franklin is, if that's even a chain. I don't know. I don't know. We had a store at my place called Ben Franklin that was mainly, I think I've talked about it before, but it was primarily sold, like, party supplies, but also sold, like, they had, like, a candy aisle and, like, a toy aisle. They sold, like, models and shit. It was, like, all kinds of weird stuff. This looks more like a bargain store, like, dollar store kind of thing or something. I don't know.
Although it's not the same type of store, But you know what did kind of make me have an existential crisis at the horrors of capitalism? Buc-ee's.
Oh, yeah. That would actually be probably a good similar. Yes, no, I completely agree. Buc-ee's was a nightmare.
That was a nightmare.
I've been in Buc-ee's exactly twice now, I think, and I was like, oh no, this is not for me. This is not. I that was a weird experience when we went to that. But yeah, that's a whole different thing. But went in the Buc-ee's one time, and I was like, I don't ever need to be in this store ever again. I don't. I know people love it, but for me, I'm just like, what the fuck is this? This is yes, like you said, this is like this weird, which I guess that's a good example, because I did have this weird kind of like existential crisis being in that store that was hard to put into words. So maybe that's what the book is going for, I guess.
Yeah.
That being said, I thought it was a good cut for the movie because I didn't, well, and to be fair, I think might have been that it may not have existed anymore when they were filming them. I don't know. Because it closed pretty soon after the book came out, I believe. But it like, the other thing that was confusing is that like Todd has this like nervous breakdown and then the store like implodes and I thought it killed him.
Yeah.
But it didn't.
It doesn't, no.
Because then I got confused.
He comes back later.
And then in the next scene, we see him doing stuff and I was like, wait, is this a flashback? We see Todd like getting, well, because in the next scene, we see Todd get gelato, which is the whole setup for the vegan police thing in the book. But I was like, wait, is this a flashback or something? Like, oh no, he didn't die when the store collapsed on him. So that was all just, we get like 3 starts and stops with the Todd fight in a way that is just really kind of confusing and
like way more obnoxious than any of the other like Evil X fights.
Yeah,
the Todd thing just dragged out forever.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I also thought the cleaning lady exchange, which is in the book, where Todd is like, tell the cleaning lady to take you out on Monday, whatever the fuck he says. And that all comes from the book, but it is the delivery of it in the film.
The delivery
is so
sells it.
Fucking funny. Like, it's funny in the book still, but seeing him do that, Brandon Routh do that delivery in the movie it's way funnier. And then the other thing I really like, apart from truncating everything with Todd, is that we get an actual ending where Scott defeats him.
Yes.
He defeats him with the Battle of the Wits from Princess Bride.
Yeah. He tricks him into drinking half and half. Whereas in the book, the vegan police
literally
just kind of show up. And we do set up like the gelato thing earlier, but I think having Scott actually do something to defeat Todd is way better.
Yes. Also the line when he's like, when he's like, oh, I know you're going to put the half and half in that one and blah, blah. So he goes, I could tell you I could read your thoughts, bro, because I'm vegan. And I could tell you put the half and half in that one. Give me the other one. And Scott's like, I thought about it. Or he says something. It's the line where he's like, but I thought really hard about putting it in this one or whatever. And that always cracks me up. But yeah, having him actually defeat him, I think makes more sense.
Although I will say I did appreciate the line in the book where Scott's fighting Todd right before the vegan police show up. And he's like, I need some kind of like last minute poorly set up Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah. And surprised the vegan police show up. And I would even say the vegan police are in the book, but I would say they're even better in the movie because I love that it's Thomas Jane and Clifton Collins Jr. Show up with their cameo. And specifically when they show up and when they leave at the end after they take Todd's powers away and they're running out and they go, yeah, and jump and high five each other is so goofy and funny that I love it every time. It just cracks me the fuck up. A thing that the movie doesn't do that I appreciated is that at the beginning of book 4, during the short little color section, they're all at the beach. There is a swimsuit shot of Knives Chow, and the caption says, Knives Chow, still 17.
Yes.
And I was like, oh,
well, we gotta draw our attention to it.
Yeah, why are we doing that, man? What the fuck? Yeah, and I had additional notes here because then later on, book 6 really leans into like, for at least initially, there's a moment in book 6 where I was like, oh, they're gonna like really kind of lean into and address the creepiness.
Yeah, I kind of thought we were gonna actually take Scott to task.
Yes,
for that for a minute,
and then we don't. but because there's this moment in the where Knives shows up. Scott, hey, Knives Chow, 18 years old. Knives, when did you turn 18? Last week. Does that mean you were practically 16 when we met? And she scoots over. No way, we met on my 17th birthday, silly. So how's it feel to be no longer a child in the eyes of the law? And then the little caption is sketchy ass 24-year-old. And I was like, oh, we're like really going at like, which the book has always, and the movie both clearly don't approve of Scott dating a 17-year-old. And I don't know, like, I think technically in Canada, 17 might be, it must be,
I
right?
don't know.
Maybe, because even then, whatever. Although he does say here, no longer a child in the eyes of the law. So maybe it is 18 in Canada. I don't know. Because I know in some places it's 17 or whatever. But so I was like, oh, we're going to like really go at it here. Because it's clear that nobody approves of Scott dating a 17-year-old.
Yes.
But the book's still kind of weird about it.
I don't know that. Like, yes, everybody disapproves of it. I think even the narrative in both the book and the movie disapprove of it. I'm not sure either disapprove of it enough.
Yes, I would agree with that. And that's why I thought, oh, in book 6, we're about to get like a real big condemnation of like, what the fuck is like, that's fucked up. And so I'm like, oh, okay. Because then, and he's like, so how's it feel to be like no longer a child in the eyes of the law? She says, oh, it's okay. And then she says, I'm moving away soon. I applied to McGill and UBC and I'm graduating in 3 months. And he goes, you mean you're going to stop being a high schooler? And she goes, I'll be so far away from all my friends, but I feel like it's the right thing to do, you know? You're 18 years old. I just think it's time for a change in my life, a big change. And then we get this crazy Persona 5 like style anime thing of Scott pointing at her going, do you want to have sex? I think we should have sex. Casual sex. And you're like, oh. So you're not fixing this. You're making it weirder. Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Amazing.
And again, like, I don't think we're supposed to approve of that.
No.
Like, I don't think the narrative approves of it. But the narrative also never really takes him to task for it.
Well, and then she's like, she says no or whatever, or they don't have sex. She turns him down. But then she's like, it's cool if we just make out for a while. And they start making out. But then they realize the book's like, but it was horrible for everyone. And that includes you. So the book knows, but still does it. And I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? The book knows we hate it, but still does it. And it's like, why are we doing this? It's fucking weird. And I agree. I think that's a thing that I can understand people being skeeved out in general about this whole thing, is that it doesn't quite probably go hard enough in being like, hey man, what the fuck? That's fucked up. Like everybody says that, but it's still like played for a joke in a way that feels like, it still feels like there's this weird wink and a nod of like, but actually it's not that, like, but it's okay. Kind of like we're going to say it's bad, but it's don't like it. A better change in the movie is that Ramona is clearly set up as bi from the beginning of the movie. In the book, it is very, very clear that was like a book 4 decision.
Yes, that was a mid-series decision by Brian Lee O'Malley.
Because from the beginning, she keeps, in the first couple books, she always says evil ex-boyfriends.
Yes.
Every single time.
Every time.
And then all of a sudden in book 4, he says, oh, you're evil ex-boyfriends. And she goes, evil exes. And I was like, oh, because I had a note early on. I was like, oh, so I'm wondering if that's just going to be a movie edition.
Yeah.
Like I, for a while, thought that might literally just be a movie edition of her being bi and one of the exes being a girl. I thought that might, like, maybe the movies did that and the books just never did. But no, they just got there late. I was like, oh, okay. And so it does help in the movie that it was at least set up from the beginning where she corrects him immediately when he says evil ex-boyfriend. She's no evil exes. Yeah. Another thing in the books that I hated that
I hated this so much.
Hated it is that Scott stumbles in on a drunk Kim and Knives making out one time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck? Kim would literally never. Everything we know about Kim
would never.
Never. It makes literally no sense. The only thing I could think in this scene was that, which is a terrible way to do it, but the only thing I could think is that because this is all in book 4 when we're setting up, and I think it's just the idea that we're like, I feel like Brian Lee O'Malley felt like he needed to set up for the audience that the idea that bi women exist, like
maybe
or something, I don't even know, because The only thing I could think in this moment, because I hate it, because I was like, Ramona or Kim would literally never make. What are you doing? She gives him shit all the time about dating a high schooler.
Yeah, she would never.
She would never. It's insane. Even drunk. There's just no way. All I could think, I was like, the only thing I'm hoping is that maybe this is a breadcrumb setting up that Kim is in fact bi, and that this is setting up the true ending, my one true ship, or what is it called? One true pairing, OTP?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is Kim and Ramona. I wrote, one can hope that is not how it goes, but my true ending is that Kim and Ramona should have run away together.
I mean, I too was team Kimona by the end of this series.
Well, and the crazy thing, I feel like the book kind of teases that at times. There are times where, like, they keep talking about, there's this one exchange in particular, but there's times where, like, in particular, Ramona keeps asking, like, where's Kim? What's up with Kim? Like, seems interested in, like, where Kim is at all the time and, like, what Kim's up to for reasons unbeknownst to us. We don't, like, they don't seem to be, like, super close friends or anything. And so I'm like, oh, is he, like, seeding this? We even get a particular scene where Ramona says something about Kim, and Scott's like, well, why don't you marry her? So, like, as a joke comeback, and Ramona goes, like, well, maybe, or something like that. She says a lot, like, there's some exchange like that. And I was like, oh my God, are we really setting that up? I was, like, legitimately hopeful that that might be the ending of this thing, and that Scott has to stay by himself. Kim and Ramona will figure out they should be together because they get their shit sorted out, and Scott has to figure it out later or whatever. But no. I am glad that the movie removed the Knives' dad plot line.
Yeah, I hard agree. It went nowhere.
It didn't really go anywhere. I think the goal was just to kind of expand on Knives' backstory a little bit and, like, her home life, and to kind of explain.
But it didn't even really do that.
No, not really. It's just that her dad in the book is like a ninja who is chasing Scott around.
Yeah.
Trying to kill him for dating Knives. And he doesn't realize who this is for a while. Eventually, oh my God, it's Knives' dad. They have a fight briefly at one point. He fights Ramona briefly. Anyways, turns into this thing. Eventually, they come to an understanding, and he explains to Knives' dad that he, like, never slept with her or even kissed her or anything like that. And Knives' dad is like, oh, okay. And he says to Knives, like, that Scott guy, he's a pretty okay guy. And, like, that's the last we see of him.
It's dumb.
And
pointless.
And the joke is that he says it in Chinese, and Knives doesn't understand it because she doesn't speak Chinese.
Yeah. I guess.
Whatever. The movie removes a scene where Ramona fat shames Roxy when Roxy shows back up, and she's like, you've gained weight since we dated. And it was like, what the f?
Yeah.
Okay. That's some of the stuff with Ramona where I thought the movie makes her into it. Yeah.
But, like, while we're on the subject of fat shaming, why were these books constantly trying to gaslight me into thinking Ramona was fat?
Are they, though? Because isn't it?
So some of that comes from Knives.
I say it's usually not, and that's
which
what the movie
is fine.
Does. Yeah.
Like, I mean, not fine, but, like, it makes sense for her character.
Knives is the scorned lover who
she's
is
scorned lover, and
things.
she's also very young.
And so she's just making up things to insult Ramona with. Yeah.
But I swear to you, there are other moments in the book that do not come from Knives that, like,
I would have to
dig at Ramona for her weight.
Yeah.
And I'm like, she's drawn the same as everybody else, so I'm not really sure what we're on about here.
I don't remember that, but she is definitely not drawn to be fat, so I don't know why that would be the case. I thought that it made sense to remove the whole plot line where Lisa shows back up.
Yeah, that was really like a nothing plot line.
It's just there to... I get why it's there in the book. It's there to be the temptation for Scott. She is the girl that shows up from his past, who he dated briefly didn't date.
Didn't date.
They never dated.
He dated Kim.
He dated Kim. But he had a crush on her, I think, at one point or something like that. And she shows back up, and they have this whole kind of thing where he's in a rough spot with Ramona. Yeah. And
she's like really into him.
She's really into him when she shows back up. She literally tells Scott that every time she's been around him, she's been dressing, quote unquote, like a tart for him.
Yes.
Because she likes the attention. It's all like, it's just, and then it all just, the whole point of it is that he doesn't have sex with her. He proves his loyalty, you know, like he proves that he's grown up enough to not just sleep with every girl that throws herself at him, I guess is the idea or whatever. And it's just like, okay, sure. It doesn't really go anywhere. It's just, again, that's just there for Scott to prove that he's better or whatever. I don't think it needed to be in the movie.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have minded seeing her as like a background character. And maybe she is a background character somewhere and I just didn't notice.
Yeah.
But her entire plotline absolutely did not need to be in the movie. Something I did like in the movie, during the fight with Roxy, I loved that she uses her belt as a weapon. She has on this like looped, like this studded belt that's like looped
it looks like an emo
times.
belt, kind of.
It
like
does,
the studded emo belt, yeah.
And she like pulls it off and uses it as a whip, and I was like, oh, that's so bisexual. So bisexual coded.
Absolutely. I would just say better in the movie generally is just Roxy. I think what's her name? Oh my god, I'm blanking on the actress's name now. Who plays Roxy?
It's May something.
Mae Whitman.
Yes.
I think she does a great job.
Yeah.
All of her dialogue is basically straight from the book for the most part, but her delivery of it is all really funny, and her look is great. And I thought she's fantastic. I love her character, even though it's brief and not everything with her character is great, which we're gonna get into a little bit here later. But yeah, one of the things that's great is when she is fighting them, Ramona, Scott doesn't want to fight a girl. He doesn't want to hit a girl.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, oh, I don't want to punch a girl. So at one point, Ramona starts puppeting his body like it's Ratatouille.
Yes.
To fight her, which I thought was great. She's like holding his hands and like kicking his feet to like fight Roxy, which is amazing. A thing that the movie gets rid of that I thought was a good decision, or maybe doesn't get rid of, but just wasn't a thing maybe thought of yet, because I don't think it shows up until book 5. To be fair,
would swear on my life it does not.
Yeah, even though they seem to imply that it was happening prior to whatever, which is the glow, which was, I was not big on this. There's the scene where Ramona's head starts glowing. And then at one point, Scott's like, why is you're glowing? Your head's glowing. And she goes, no, it's not. What are you talking about? And then she tells Scott that he's glowed before. She's like, oh, what are you talking about? I'm not glowing, but you've glowed before. And I'm like, what is all of this glow stuff? And then,
I was like never 100% sure I understood what I was supposed to get from that.
I could tell that it was supposed to be something related to like, because like it happens right when Ramona starts thinking about like leaving, when she's like, I got to get out of here. She's thinking about leaving. And I went and did some more looking after this to see like what people think it, and it's seemingly meant to represent kind of the character experiencing insecurity, self-doubt, anxiety, that sort of thing. But I swear to God, it just randomly shows up in book 5.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere.
Yes.
And you're like,
they like start talking about it.
Like it's been a thing the whole time. And you're like, wait, what?
Like, has it? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that the twins being a techno band and doing the amp battle was a lot better and worked better thematically than just have them having like random robots that fight Scott.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. That whole battle with the Katayanagi twins in the Battle of the Bands scene where they go amp versus amp is super cool and fun and just visually stunning and really cool. It was the first film we got to watch. We purchased an Ultra HD Blu-ray player for this, and boy, that's a scene that shines in Ultra HD because there's so many like particle effects and shit that I was like, holy shit, that looks good. But yeah, that whole battle is great, and I agree. Like, just like it makes sense for kind of their whole thing instead of just random robots. Yeah, they're sending robots after them to fight them, and you're like, what does that have to do with anything?
And like overall, I appreciated the movie's like better commitment to music. Than what the books had.
Yes, you would think the books would. It's really a thing in the first one, and it's a recurring thing throughout. But the movie makes it a central pillar of like the storytelling, whereas in this it's more of like an ancillary background thing,
kind of gets like progressively less important as we move through the series.
On, whereas the movie kind of keeps it front and center for most of the film, which I thought was fun.
I was also thinking while we were watching the scene, if we ever got a chance to see this on like a really good, like cool, at a movie theater.
Oh, like at an IMAX or something. Yeah.
I would like to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would seeing this in like an IMAX theater would be incredible. So there's this after Ramona breaks up with him in the movie, we get the scene where he plays the sad Ramona song that he wrote for her. But we see the scene of him slamming his head against a telephone pole, which comes from the book. That exact scene, we get that exact imagery in the book of him like thunking his head against a telephone pole. But it is elevated again by the movie because he is thunking his head to the music of the sad Ramona song that he's playing. Again, just every little thing taken to the next level because Edgar Wright is very extra.
He is extra.
That's
a good word for him.
Yeah. There's a great line in the movie that I don't think is in the book anywhere where I don't even remember who he's talking to, but Wallace says this. They're trying to figure out what happened to Ramona.
Yeah.
And he says like, I think Wallace tells him she's with Gideon or something like that. I don't remember how it all transpires, but somebody says like she's with Gideon and Wallace and Scott's like, oh, really? And Wallace says to him, don't worry, man. It's probably just because he's better than you, which is very funny. I love Wallace's character in the movie. He's fun in the book, but the performance by Kieran Culkin in the movie is fucking
top notch.
Yeah, it's incredible. A great little moment in the movie that I thought is a lot of fun that doesn't come from the book is when he's getting into what is it called? Chaos or whatever?
The Chaos Theater.
Chaos Theater, which is Gideon's club for the big final action sequence. He's got to get in there to save Ramona. And he's like on a mission and he's like walking up to the gates and there's guards or there's doormen or whatever. There's bouncers. And he gets to the first set of doors outside and they're like, password. And he's like, whatever. And they're like, cool. And they let him in. And then he gets down to like the elevator to go down into the thing or whatever. And the guy's like, second password. And he just goes, ugh. And they're like, cool. They let him in. And I just love that the passwords are whatever and a grunt, apparently. This is very funny.
This isn't really a better in the movie per se, but I appreciated that the movie used Sex Bob-Omb's black and white mismatched outfits.
Yeah.
Because they do wear those in volume 3.
I remember seeing those and being like, I remember those from the movie, 100%.
And they have the movie has them wear them in the climax scene, which really works because they look like unnatural.
Yes, which is the point because it's like you're in the movie. The idea is maybe like Gideon forced them to wear them or something like that because they're there.
The constraints of having a label.
Exactly. But yeah, Kim is wearing like this, like I think they called it in the book like a gothic Lolita outfit, and she's wearing that, and then Steven Stills is wearing like a black
cowboy
and white cowboy
outfit
shirt thing, and then young Neil's just wearing like a suit or whatever. But that does come from the book.
Also, Kim's line, this is not from the books, but I love, we are Sex Bob-Omb. We're here to make money and sell out and stuff.
Except she says it like, we are Sex Bob-Omb. We are here to make money and sell out. And because she's obviously not psyched about it. But yeah. I really like that after Scott has his big moment. So at this point, Scott has been killed, got his one up, and he's coming back to do everything over again and make everything right. And this is one of those moments that I feel like people do just forget that this stuff happens in the movie when they say that Scott is like still an asshole at the end. Is that he comes in and the first thing he does when he gets inside, he walks up to the band and he's like, hey guys, the new lineup rocks. You sound better without me. And he's the one who calls Neil instead of young Neil.
Yes.
He dubs him Neil and gets, lets him level up from being young Neil to just Neil, which I thought was fun. And I thought just that whole thing of the way the movie replays all of Scott's actions, but then allows him and forces him to take ownership.
Yes.
Was a very clever way to do some of what the book does at the end with him like coming to terms with everything by having it all replay and seeing the same events, but slightly differently, where Scott is taking more of an active responsibility for everything. I thought was a very clever way to kind of quickly work that all in. Again, I still don't think it works great. It does feel a little like, sure, whatever, but it works pretty good.
I was totally fine with the movie skipping Gideon's cryogenically frozen women.
Yeah, he's creating a harem of cryogenically frozen people that his exes are all frozen in a tube, and he has a spot for Ramona, I think, or Envy, one of the two. yeah,
It doesn't even really go anywhere.
Doesn't
in
really
the
go
book.
anywhere.
They
It's
like
just there-
introduce
it's
it,
just
and
there
it's
to,
just
to
there.
really like up the stakes of like how evil Gideon is.
Yeah.
It's like he's creating. Yeah, he has like a harem or whatever. It's like, okay,
We didn't need that
No.
though.
no. I thought Knives and Scott working together to defeat Gideon in a callback to the DDR game was a fun
Yeah, it's fun.
little callback. They have to fight him similarly to how they did there. And I have always loved, even though I do like the way they do the anime cutting with him and Ramona in the movie or in the book, I have always loved the silliness of the way Scott rears back and just kicks Gideon's
Yes.
head off. Just the way it looks is so silly, and it always cracks me up because he looks like a video game character or a cartoon character, and it's just very, very funny.
My last note here is that I was totally fine with the movie leaving out
Yes.
Steven Stills coming out
He's like,
at
"I'm
the
gay,
tail end of like
actually."
it literally in the last like 5 pages of the last book.
Yeah.
I appreciated the meta line where he was like, "Oh, I actually came out in volume 5, but you seemed busy, so I just didn't mention it."
Yeah.
But it was absolutely felt like something that Brian Lee O'Malley just randomly decided to do at the 11th hour.
I don't know.
It didn't feel to me like it was planned at all.
Maybe. I could see potentially, because one of the whole running things in the book that really isn't in the movie at all is that Steven Stills is in like a string of terrible relationships and keeps like he's always miserable with like every woman he's with.
Well, it's Julie.
Julie
Yeah.
specifically. They have this on and off again relationship, and he's just miserable the whole time. I do agree that it feels a little bit like maybe it was like, oh, I've been setting up that he's been miserable in this relationship the whole time. The reason is actually he's gay and didn't know it or whatever. Maybe it could have been a final, like a last second kind of decision.
Mhm.
But I also think it's not impossible that maybe he was planning something like that. But
Yeah, I guess.
But I agree. It feels fairly last second kind of. Oh, yeah. All right. That was everything we had for Better in the Movie. Let's go ahead and talk about stuff the movie nailed.
As I expected, practically perfect in every way.
Okay, right off the bat, we need to talk about how much effort was put into the actors just looking exactly like their comic book counterparts.
It's insane.
Because it's nuts.
It's insane. I was literally stunned when I opened the graphic novel and started reading.
Yeah.
Almost all of them, but specifically Steven Stills.
Yes.
I don't know if you could find a human being that looks more like the comic book drawing of Steven Stills than that dude it's fucking nuts. It's insane. But all of them for the most part, like, arguably Scott might look the least like his, but even then he still does kind of look like him. But apart, like Kim looks exactly like Kim's character. Envy looks exactly like Envy's character, at least in the earlier books. The later version, she looks kind of different. In the 6th book, they like gave her a. I had a note about this later, but the whole art style in the 6th one kind of changes a little bit. A little bit. I think he just got maybe more time or became a better artist. I don't know. It's more refined. All of the art in the 6th book looks like it got like an extra something done to it. It's just more refined and more like polished than the rest of it. And Envy in particular, I feel like looks pretty different than she did in the earlier ones. But anyways, but yes. Just generally across the board, every single person looks exactly the same. And I also just decided, so as I was going through my book notes, I'm like, I'm not going to put every single thing I had in for this category. It's one of the most faithful adaptations I've ever seen in terms of like including stuff from the book. Yes. It's nuts. Pretty much every frame of the movie, other than the stuff we mentioned in Better in the Movie, comes from the graphic novel in some way and is like literally just direct visual translation from page to screen for tons of it. I mean, very clearly Edgar Wright got a hold of these books and was like, I'm going to put that he up on the screen. 100% they were sitting in the editing bay holding up, well, not holding up the books, probably pulling up screen grabs of the book, holding it next, and when they were filming, like holding them up next to the, like, even little details like the way the scene is shot which I don't even know about this, but like when him and Ramona almost have sex, the shot of her crawling across the bed in her underwear is the exact same image from the book. Like it's just so much of it is just identical. So we're really not going to hit every single thing, but we're going to cover as much as we can quickly.
We have quite a few things we should bang through these.
Run.
Scott, if your life had a face, I would punch it.
Yep. The apartment layout and the breakdown of who owns what.
Yes.
Like we get the panning shot or the dolly shot with all the little labels popping up and everything belongs to Wallace.
Yes.
And just the look of the apartment is exactly what it looks like in the book.
When Stacy asks Scott why he's dating a 17-year-old and his response is, it's just nice. It's simple.
Yeah. I actually probably should have put this in better in the movie now that I think about it, because Michael Cera absolutely nails how pathetic and miserable Scott actually is.
Yeah.
But in a way that actually isn't even in the book necessarily, because there's a lot of subtlety you can see in his performance in the movie that is hard to grasp from stills in the book. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it is clear in the movie how pathetic and miserable Scott is all the time early on in the film. And he just absolutely crushes it, which is, I think, what the book is trying to get across. But Scott, I think, feels more oblivious to it in the book.
Yes.
Whereas the performance in the movie, I think he is pretending to not know that he's miserable, but you can still see it in the performance, how miserable he is, if that makes sense.
This exchange between Knives and Scott. I've never kissed a guy. Me either.
Yeah. The first time he sees Ramona at the library, it's the exact same shots of him and Knives walking down the stairs carrying books and her at the front desk. It's literally like picture perfect recreation.
Yeah. The line exchange when Knives is watching them practice and somebody says, like, is your girlfriend distracting you? And she just goes, I'll be quieter.
Yeah, it's great. After Scott bombs with Ramona trying his little Pac-Man Puckman thing, he says, I'll leave you alone forever now.
Yes, and then proceeds to stalk her all around the party.
Yeah.
And I believe a lot of the stalking shots are like
exactly
from the book, too.
Yeah. There's a great line in the movie. I putting this in movie nailed it because it does. We talked about how one of the things that is nice in the book is a lot of the backstory we get of what Scott has been up to and what kind of led to who he is now. The movie gives us a little bit of that in like a single line pretty early on in the movie where I think it's Steven or somebody is talking to him and they're saying, I think it's Stacy actually, I think is talking to him. And they're talking about his backstory, and he's like, I think she calls him a lady killer or something like that. He's like, lady killer, what are you talking about? And she goes, that time with Lisa, that time with Holly, that time you dumped Kim. And again, just hitting some of the backstory stuff that we see in the book, but just in like a single line. Kind of an Easter egg for book readers, I think, as much as anything.
Scott reading the email from Matthew Patel.
Yeah. This is so boring. Yeah. And then just deletes it. The Dream Desert with rollerblading Ramona, but specifically that weird little cactus, like half cactus looking thing.
Yeah.
And the desert looks exactly like it does in the book, kind of like his dream desert or whatever. Tiny
little detail when he's shopping with Knives, he's sitting on the couch that has a do not sit sign on it.
Yeah. Yeah. The poster that is over Scott and Wallace's bed in the apartment is these two girls kissing, and it is the exact same poster, which is a real poster. Like I've seen that poster before, but that is what was drawn in the book, and they have it in the movie. I think it might be Tattoo, the band Tattoo, that fake lesbian band. I think it might be. I'm not 100% on that, but I think one of them's like a Nazi now or something like that. Anyways. The movie nails this using the word we all realized was bad to call people until like this year when half the internet decided it was fine again, which is calling people slow or whatever, but like with the R word. The movie does that a couple times. It's in the book, like, I don't know, once a book maybe or something like that. But it was that time period where lots of people were saying it and not thinking about it. I used to say it back in the day. It was everybody, like, that's just how we talked. And then we realized, hey, we shouldn't do that because that's mean. And then apparently this isn't even just a right, like a politically like right side of the aisle thing. A bunch of people on the internet all of a sudden decided, fuck that, we're gonna say it again. It's like, what the hell? What happened here? Not a fan of that, but the movie nails it by having them use that word.
We do see Ramona's subspace highways.
Yeah.
And
I think they're equally messy in both the book and the movie.
It's kind of hard to understand what they're supposed to be exactly in both.
Yeah, I in my opinion, it's honestly better in the movie that they don't try to explain it at all.
I agree.
Like, it honestly is more confusing in the book when they try to give you any amount of explanation.
Yeah, because I don't think
is.
the book can decide what it is.
Yeah, I agree. But she does mention it in the movie when she delivers that package, like the subspace highway thing. She's like, "Oh, that's the subspace highway," and then that is in that conversation in the book. And I was like, and then it becomes a thing more and more later. But I will say one of the things that I thought I had this as better in the movie is that during that scene where she delivers the packages and they have that whole conversation and Scott like asks her out and she agrees to go on the date. I think the movie's version is better because at the end of that conversation, I could at least kind of understand why Ramona would agree to going out with him. At the end of their conversation in the book, I'm like, why the fuck would you ever go out with this guy? Their conversation is insane in the book and makes no sense and is super cringy. I was like, what? Yeah. Not to mention it goes into more depth with the whole subspace highway thing in a way that I was very confused at what the whole exchange was even supposed to mean. There were several times in this book series where there were conversations that happened where I was like, am I stupid? What are the words trying to express here? It didn't happen a ton, but there was like 3 or 4 times over the course of the whole series. And that was one of them where I felt like I was missing something. I'm like, what is this conversation? Even I'm not even going to try to find it and read it, but she's talking about the subspace highways and like, maybe they don't teach you about that up here in Canada. And I was like, what? And then I think it's supposed to be like a bit. She's doing a bit, but she's not doing a bit
because it's actually
because it's a real thing. But I didn't realize it was a real thing at that point.
Yeah.
Because I had only seen the movie, and in the movie it's kind of nebulous enough that it just feels like a fantastical thing. And that's why I think it works better in the movie, is that it leaves it, you can interpret it as metaphorical or as real, like as much as you want, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas in the book, they're like very explicitly like, no, this is a thing. There is this subspace highway that is created maybe by Gideon or something. I don't know.
I didn't get that part at all.
Yeah, I agree, because it's kind of alluded to later on that Gideon invented the subspace highway and the glow as a means to like control Ramona or something, but I never really understood. And then later Ramona ended up using the subspace highway in order to escape like awkward situations. I don't know. Like I said, I prefer that the movie just doesn't explain any of that because I don't think it even really makes that much sense in the book. And I was like, whatever.
But we do get the shot where they're floating through space to the door, which is very pretty.
It is very pretty. I love that. And I love the lead up where she's, I think there's a thingy over here somewhere. A thingy, a door, and then, they float through space and into Ramona's apartment. Also, I thought this was actually probably could be better in the book. I don't think it made sense in the movie to include the chapter subtitles sometimes that they do.
Yeah, they only do it occasionally.
They do it like a few times, and I'm like, wait, what? Because like this one, we get like the Ramona Come Closer, which is the name of that chapter in the book, in the movie, and I'm like, okay, I don't think that needs to be there, but whatever.
I feel like that was something they couldn't decide if they wanted to commit to.
Yeah, because I feel like
not.
it doesn't continue through the whole movie.
No,
it's more
it doesn't.
so in the beginning. And
then, Ramona's rapid list of teas that she has in her apartment
comes from the book.
Also, then they make out, and then Ramona changes her mind about having sex.
Yep. That all plays out identically, where like he walks in on her changing, and then closes his eyes, and then she's like there. That whole scene, I think that's slightly better in the movie because it's a little less nice guy cringy than it is in the book. Scott's whole interaction there is a little more like 2007 nice guy cringe, like,
everything about Crash and the Boys.
Yes, the entire Crash and the Boys set. We are Crash and the Boys, and then Wallace yelling from the balcony, "Is that girl a boy too?" And they go, "Yes," and she just flips him off, which is incredible. And I thought I love that moment so much. But then also the the next song after that, they're like, "This one goes out to the guy in the balcony who keeps yelling. It's called 'We Hate You, Please Die.'" This is great.
After Matthew Patel shows up, I think Wallace is like, "Why is that guy dressed like a pirate?" And he's just like, "Pirates are in this year."
Yeah. And I guess they're saying he's dressed like a pirate because of his striped shirt. That's like the
I
only
guess. I
thing
don't
that's
know.
like piratey about him or whatever. Yeah.
He just looks kind of emo.
Yeah. We mentioned it, but the comic animations covering the
Mhm.
backstory, obviously, it just looks like that. Those parts actually look like the graphic novel do. So
Yeah. The demon hipster chicks were on
that Matthew
point.
Patel
Yeah.
summons. Yeah, I have never paid attention to how hot the demon hipster chicks that he summoned were until this time. I was like, good lord, I've never noticed that.
I thought the breakup scene with Knives was pretty spot on.
It is pretty spot on, with a slight caveat that the ending of it is better in the movie, in my opinion, because it's very, very similar where like the world turns black behind Knives. That happens in the book, and then they have this awkward where they're just kind of standing there staring at each other. But then the movie adds the little tag on it where Scott like awkwardly slides out of the frame, which I thought was very funny. He's like, okay. The gag that happens several times in the movie, where Kim fakes like killing herself, and we get like the bang where like she shoots herself with the finger guns or whatever. This is in like the 5th or 6th book, and it happens in the movie. So I wasn't sure if maybe that might have been something that the books took from the movie.
Yeah, it could
potentially.
be.
I don't know.
That's like a small enough detail where I
Yeah.
could believe that.
And there were things I read when we were doing the prequel things that there were elements in at least in the 6th book, if not maybe the 5th, depending on when it was written, that were stuff that he took from their work on the movie. So.
The line, "Bread makes you fat?"
Bread makes you fat. And it's, yeah, Michael Cera's delivery just absolutely makes that scene. Like, it's very funny in the book as well, but it's his performance of it in the movie. Bread makes you fat? Yeah, it's great. The grinding, when he dares Lucas Lee to grind down the rail, and he's like grinding down the rail, and then it keeps cutting back to Scott going, wow. Again, honestly, could be better in the movie, but it does come from the book.
Yes.
I think we do have the cut back and forth between him grinding and then, but it's elevated in the movie because of one, Michael Cera's wow, but also the music cutting out is like, it's like this intense like as he's grinding, and then it cuts back to them and the music's gone, and he's just like wow. Yeah, it's great.
And then after Lucas Lee explodes, Scott's, I didn't get his autograph.
His autograph, yeah.
Scott's phone call with Envy. Pretty spot on.
Much spot on.
Also Scott punching Roxy in the boob.
Yes, you punched me in the boob, but also the still frame when he like knocks her out of midair.
Yeah.
That's exactly out of the book, that exact frame. Ramona mentioning, I said this earlier, but Ramona setting up that she dated a Todd once, setting up the reveal for Todd later.
Knives' line, "I've kissed the lips that kissed you."
Yeah.
That's such a teenage girl thing to...
Yeah. Yeah. And then Todd knocking the blue out of Knives' hair. In the book, it's not Todd. It is the bionic armed drummer who does it, but close enough. Which in the movie when I was watching the Black Sheep video today, the drummer, I don't think she has a bionic arm, but one of her arms is like all wrapped in a thing. Like I think that maybe you're supposed to assume that underneath that is like a bionic arm or something.
Also Todd having powers because he's a vegan.
Yes, which is another one of those things that I think having even less of an explanation of the vegan powers in the movie makes it funnier.
Yes.
Because there is more of a backstory to that where we learn about him going to vegan school, and like we get a little bit more backstory about like why vegan people have powers and how that all works. Not a bunch, but a little bit. On top of that, Brandon Routh's performance of that character is incredible. But that whole thing with the vegan, when I was reading the book, and all of the stuff with the vegan character with Todd, I was like, it's so clear that Brian O'Malley had one annoying conversation with a vegan and put it all into this character.
Yeah.
He had like one annoying conversation and was like, fuck vegans, and put it into this character. You mentioned this earlier, but the whole Todd backstory and punching a hole in the moon obviously comes from the book. The back of the knee weak spot from the Envy fight being in the Roxy fight comes from the book.
Yeah. Ramona's line, "You're just another evil ex waiting to happen," to Scott.
Yep. The line that I opened the episode with, "We are Sex Bob-Omb, and we're here to make you think about death and get sad and stuff." It's great. There is a giant pyramid in the Chaos Club, in Gideon's club, and the elevator shot of it going down to which that absolutely, because we know book 6 was written after the movie. That to me is probably one where it goes backwards, where
Yes.
that
Yeah,
imagery
I
probably
agree.
came from the movie and then got put into the book, if I had to guess. But yeah, we nailed him apologizing to Kim. We do get the whole scene, like in the movie, he runs in at the end and he's like, "Man, you're all better," blah blah blah, and then he turns to Kim and says, "Kim, I'm sorry about everything. I'm sorry about me." And that line does come from the book. In the book, it's a whole different scene where they're at the bus stop and he's like talking to her, but it's the same line and the same idea. And then it ends with Ramona and Scott together going through a magic door saying maybe we could try again. I think in the book, Ramona says maybe we could try again. And in the movie, Scott says it, but whatever.
Close enough.
Close enough. All right, odds and ends before we get to the final verdict. The 8-bit Universal opening is
Fantastic.
fun, super fun.
Fantastic.
And I said it earlier, but just from moment one, the energy and the camera work and the editing is just, it's the best, and it still works, and it's incredible. And I could watch this movie 1,000 times and I would always find a new thing that is fascinating and incredible about the way it's shot and edited.
I thought it was interesting that the movie aged Scott down a year.
Yeah, I did wonder if that's like let's make the knives thing slightly less,
like,
but it's not. It's 1 year.
It's 1 year. It doesn't help that much.
If anything, you needed to age her up a year, not him down.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. Yeah. Hate to say I agree with Quentin Tarantino like ever, but I agree that the movie needed those opening credits. They are incredible,
sure.
and it's such a great like kind of like level set for the whole movie and like the style and everything you're about to get into. It's great.
My feelings on Michael Cera as a leading man have been previously documented on this show. I think he works a lot better here than in Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, when I think we talked about that in that episode.
I think we did, yeah.
And I think he works better in this because he is just so pathetic.
Yeah.
And so is Scott. But I still don't buy him as a guy that has been with multiple very hot women.
Yes.
I just don't buy it.
Yeah. Brie Larson, Allison Pill, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
I don't buy it. No.
No, I'm sorry.
Prior to reading these books, I think I had just assumed that Knives was a nickname, like when I had seen the movie previously.
Yeah, I think I did
but
too,
apparently it is her given name.
It is her given name, supposedly.
Also, I know we talked about casting.
The casting is incredible. And people have talked about how it's like retroactively one of the greatest casts ever.
Yeah.
That they just like, holy shit, how, yeah.
But Aubrey Plaza is truly inspired casting for Julie.
She's incredible. She's amazing. Yeah, as Julie. Anna Kendrick's great as Stacy. Everybody is perfect. Literally everybody is perfect in this movie. I don't think I would change a single casting in the whole film. This is a fun little fact that I read when I was doing research for the prequel. In that scene where Ramona finds Scott at the party and he talks to her at the big wide shot where they're standing at the wall, that looks like a Perks of Being a Wallflower scene or something like that. You'll notice there's this weird light switch on the wall, like 8 feet in the air, just like there. And apparently that was just there at the location they were filming, and they thought it was fun, so they included it in that wide shot. But that isn't something they like added or whatever. That was
that's great.
That house
like,
just had a weird.
That
light
is
switch.
like the kind of weird random thing that you see at a house party.
At a house party, absolutely. Why do they have a light switch 10 feet up the wall by nothing?
I don't know. Something that I really love is when I can tell that Chris Evans is having fun being in a movie. Just like
free Chris Evans.
I know.
Not even free Chris Evans. Free Chris Evans from himself, because I think he can be in whatever he wants now. Now he only picks garbage. He used to be in good movies. He was good and in good movies. I don't know what happened.
I just like there's something about his performances, like, and I think he's always good. He's always good.
In everything I've seen him in, he's been pretty good. I haven't seen some of his worst movies, but
like, there's particularly something about him that, like, when he's having fun being in a movie, it just like bubbles over into his performance.
Yeah, and when he plays villains, he's great.
He loves playing villains.
He needs to play more villains, because this and Knives Out are maybe two of his greatest performances, and they're not even that particularly like, you know, deeper, and especially this one. Knives Out has a little more going on, but it's just you could tell he loves playing villains, and he's so good at it when he gets to just chew the scenery and be a smarmy asshole. It's amazing, and yeah, he needs to do more of that and not be in fucking The Electric State or Gray Man or The Avengers 84 or whatever. I love how many practical light tricks the movie does. I never realized this before because we talked about this in Gerald's Game, how they did that, which it works in a very different way. It's much more stylistically fitting in this movie, whereas it's a much more dramatic, like kind of impactful moments. But they do quite a few gags in this where things will happen where they practically turn down the lights like in the background and will drop characters into like a single spotlight, like where it looks like they're on like a blacked out stage basically with a single spotlight. It happens a lot throughout this movie. And every time I think it's really cool and just really fun.
Okay, so we're gonna have to talk about we're gonna have to talk about Ramona's it was just a phase, etc.
Yes.
In reference to Roxy.
Yeah.
Because oh boy, there's a lot of mess happening here in both the books and the movie.
Yeah, because it plays out pretty similarly in both. Is that Scott it dawns on him who Roxy is, and we get the close up of his. In the book, it's his brain hatches an egg. In the movie, it's like a little meter that's like doesn't get it, gets it or whatever. Yeah. But he figures it out, and he's like, wait, you dated her? And her response is, it was a phase.
Classic.
And then he says in response to that, you had a sexy phase? And oof, boy, oh boy. Yeah.
And like, as much as I appreciate adding, well, I'm a little bi-furious to the
I thought that line
lexicon.
Is hilarious because
it's a great line.
Because in response, then Ramona goes, "I was just a little bi-curious," and Roxy responds by saying, "Bi-curious? Well, I'm a little bi-furious," which is incredible.
I do think like, and it's not just this.
Oh no, not at all.
But the casual kind of quote unquote unserious homophobia and biphobia that is in this series does feel, unfortunately, like extremely particularly accurate to the time period.
Oh my God, yes. It is. It's that exact window where where the culture, I say the culture and like popular culture and stuff like this, mainstream culture, was chill with gay people as a concept, but we're still had the remnants of making fun and not taking
homosexuality it seriously.
Yeah, where it's like we're still in the phase of like, let's just make fun of everybody and like make jokes about gay people and stuff like that. Like there's a ton of jokes about Wallace being gay, but at the same time, Wallace is a fully realized character who they are all friends with. He's a great character. They all like him. They all love him. They, like he's not his homosexuality doesn't even define it. It kind of defines him as a character, but not entirely. And like, so it's this, we're at that weird middle point between like, oh God, like every depiction of any sort of queerness is awful and bad, versus a more progressive time where we're still obviously have a long way to go, but like we've gotten to a point where we're a lot more cognizant of all that stuff. This was that middle ground time where like
absolutely
everybody was kind of figuring it out or whatever in a way that was rough.
The book series and the movie is like a very like good like kind of microcosm example of that window.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Like another example of it, of some of that kind of like unserious homophobia, and like not like unintentional homophobia. Again, because I think that's another thing, is that all of it is, most of it I think is pretty unintentionally. None of it I think is trying to be like judgmental or like saying any of this stuff is bad. it's just like, oh, but what you're saying belies a
Right.
homophobia
Yeah, I
or
don't. I don't think the.
acknowledged biphobia or
Yeah, I
homophobia
don't
or
think the
whatever.
intention is to be.
Malicious, judgmental.
Yeah, I don't think the intention is to be malicious.
No, absolutely not. I don't think.
But I think you're exactly right that the way that it doesn't take those relationships seriously belies that like underlying
an unexamined homophobia.
Yes, unexamined homophobia.
There's a lot of people have examined the surface level homophobia at this point of like, hey, gay people are just people. We should respect them.
Yeah.
We can be friends with them, and they should be able to get married and be in relationships.
Yeah, like,
and do
hey,
whatever
like
they want.
maybe we shouldn't do slurs.
Maybe we shouldn't do slurs. Maybe they've gotten a lot of people at this point have acknowledged and examined that level of homophobia. But a lot of people have not examined or thought about the deeper layers of stuff. And an example of that I think in the book is a big part of that is that during the whole Lisa plotline, when Ramona and Scott are on this rough patch, Ramona kicks Scott out for the night, and Scott goes and ends up staying at Lisa's place.
Yeah.
And this is where he ends up not sleeping with her despite her like wanting to sleep with him.
He avoids the temptation.
And then he goes in to talk to Ramona and like try to patch things over. And we get to Ramona's place, and while he's talking to Ramona, Roxy walks down the stairs.
Yeah.
And it turns out Roxy has spent the night at Ramona's place. And so they have both had this thing happen, or they both stayed with an ex or an unrequited love from the past or whatever. And Scott is like, well, no, we didn't do anything. Like he's like telling her, like, yes, I was with Lisa, blah blah blah. But then Ramona says to him, oh yeah, Roxy stayed here, but nothing happened. We didn't even make out that much, is what she says. And the book never addresses that. Scott doesn't even. I think he might have like a dumb, nerdy, sexy reaction to it, but doesn't like.
Right. The book does not take it seriously.
Does not take it seriously because cheating or anything like that, because the book does not acknowledge it, because the unexamined biphobia, homophobia of Brian Lee O'Malley while writing that scene is that he does not view two hot women kissing as a real like relationship or thing that means something. It's just something two women can do that he thinks is hot. That, and I think and I think he would admit that now if he were to go back and because I think Brian Lee O'Malley is probably if I had to guess, a fairly progressive guy these days. I have no idea. But based on the politics of these books, I think he was somebody who was probably learning, because you can see him learning a little bit over the course of the books, I think, and trying to I think part of the idea of making Ramona bi 4 books into the series, I think part of that is him being like, wanting to have some more representation. I think that is part of like what it is. He likes the idea of representation and stuff like that. And obviously there's gay characters in here and stuff like that. So I think he wants to be progressive and representative of, and represent people with different sexualities and all that kind of stuff.
Or at least that's what it seems like.
That's what it seems like. And so I could also see him going the other way. Who knows? Maybe he is a giant like nightmare.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I doubt it, but I don't think so. But I do think that today, if you were to ask him about that, he would say, yeah, that wasn't, there was some unchecked, unexamined biphobia and just kind of homophobia there that I wasn't aware of at the time. Yeah. There's also a little light transphobia, trying to be progressive. I think this.
Yeah, I need you to tell me what this is, because I don't know what this is.
I think this is the same kind of thing where it's that like there's some transphobia that I think is. I gotta find. So I know the page number, but it's during a section where the pages are numbered so far apart that I can't find. Give me a second. Ramona shows up at the club, and Gideon says, "Ramona flowers," and so the prodigal son returns. And in the background, there are these two characters in the crowd.
Oh, okay, I remember.
And
this
one
now.
of them goes, "Is that chick a dude?" And the other guy goes, "I'm Googling her as we speak." And then some other stuff happens. Blah blah blah. Ramona is standing there, and then we get those two guys in the crowd again, and they're looking at Ramona, and the one guy says, "If she's a dude, I'm super gay," and the other guy goes, "Word." So there is some transphobia there that is trying to be progressive in the sense of like, I don't care if that person's trans, they're hot, but they're actually a dude. Like, you know what I mean? It's that like. Like, I'm into how hot they are, but they're actually
Right.
a dude,
And
maybe.
then
But
kind of a similar thing to what you were talking about later, where we've like kind of surface level examined
Yes.
some things,
Yeah.
but we have not dug any deeper
Yeah.
than very surface level.
Yeah, exactly.
Moving on from that, how do we feel about the literal mind control device in the movie?
I don't like it. That's another.
Yeah, I think it's a little easier to understand than the books version, so I get why the movie went with that, because it's like an easy visual.
Yes.
But it also felt it's so easy.
Easy and cheesy. You're just like, what? Okay, yeah, sure. I guess she's got a chip in her neck that.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, in comparison, the books isn't much better. It's
Right.
like, oh, the glow is something.
Yeah,
he
well,
was
and you would
using.
have to explain like the entire subspace, because
Yeah.
I think the idea in the book is that subspace runs like through your subconscious.
Yes.
So if Gideon is like always in her subconscious, he's like literally in her head, and you can like literally go in there.
Yeah.
But you would have to explain all of that within the movie, which we can tell that the movie was not interested in doing.
because it probably didn't understand it, because again, I don't think the book really understands
no.
necessarily what's going on there. And so they're like, he put a chip on her neck, and you're like, okay,
All right,
it's
sure,
very silly,
I guess.
it's not great. But again, both of them are kind of clunky and messy in their own way, so whatever.
Let's talk about Brian Lee O'Malley's plethora of fetishes.
It feels a little impolite to try to list them all.
I mean, I didn't necessarily want to list them all. I just, I mean, we went ahead and did it, kind of.
Yeah.
But like, I just like, I got to the end of this series and I was like, I kind of hate that I feel like I know what all of his sexual fetishes are.
Right? It's crazy. Yeah. And then speaking of subspace, I thought this had to be a double entendre, right? Is he at one point Scott is talking to Gideon and they're talking about Ramona and the subspace highway things or whatever, and Gideon says to him, "Who do you think taught Ramona about subspace anyway?" And I was like, okay, that feels like an intentional little double entendre there about teaching her about subspace as opposed to like another way of saying that. But yeah. So yeah, I do think we're maybe supposed to see, and not to mention on top of that, there are numerous times that we see, or at least once or twice that we see, which we also see in the movie a little bit, the shot of Gideon sitting in the throne with Ramona like kneeling
sitting at
next
his
to him.
feet. Yeah.
In the book, though, in the movie, she's at least wearing like normal clothes. In the book, she's wearing like fetish gear. In that scene.
She's like handcuffed.
Yes, and she's like wearing like strappy leather like stuff.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, yeah. I thought the same thing when Envy showed up again in book 6 in her dress at the party all of a sudden, and you're like, wait a second, what? She is dressed like
yeah, she's wearing like a bondage dress.
Yeah, like a strappy bondage dress thing, and you're like, and like these very strappy heels. I feel confident saying that Brian Lee O'Malley is into strappy things, leathery, strappy
bondage gear
stuff. Absolutely. And you can assume that because at one point Gideon says to Ramona, dressing you, to Envy.
Yeah, to Envy.
Dressing you up like a doll is very fulfilling for me sexually. And while that may be the villain of the story saying that, I do think it's still a little bit of a confession.
I think it might also be the author.
Yeah. And then the whole thing at the end where Gideon this was insane. And this is honestly better in the movie that they didn't include this. Although I wish Envy had been in the end of the movie. It might have been interesting. But there's a whole sequence where when the sword fight happens, Gideon rips Envy's dress. Literally says in the book, Envy's dress fell off, revealing a sexier dress. And then Gideon pulls a sword out. He had a sword hidden in her dress. And then it pulls out and reveals her wearing, again, a very strappy, like, lingerie.
That one's basically lingerie. It's like got garters and high stockings.
And which is very similar to how Ramona was dressed in the scene earlier where she was like his slave in the subspace thing or whatever. There's just a lot of that throughout the series.
Also, we can't forget to add to this list roller derby girls.
Yeah, a lot of rollerblading and
And a lot of like that kind of alt style.
Alt aesthetic. Yeah. Very clearly into that. Look, I'm not judging. Those in glass houses, shall we say. I'm just commenting. I'm just acknowledging that I see you. Yeah.
Yeah. This episode, I will admit, did have me feeling some kind of way about the 2000s.
Oh, yeah.
I just like a little nostalgic for a time when every other person you knew had a garage band and Amazon was an online bookstore or whatever.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. It's definitely one of those things where you're like, oh yeah, we say it was a simpler time. It wasn't really. It was just a different. Well, maybe it was. I don't know. Well, it was simpler in some ways. That's for damn sure. But yeah. Before we get to the final verdict, we wanted to remind you can do us a favor by heading over to Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Goodreads, any of those places. Interact. We'd love to hear what you have to say about Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Well, you'll see which one we pick here in a second. I think you got a feeling for it based on how we've been talking so far, but let us know if you agree or disagree.
Yeah.
You can also help us out by heading over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to our show. Drop us a 5-star rating, write us a nice little review that helps get us out in front of more people. If you'd really love to support us, head over to patreon.com/thisfilmislit. Support us there. $2, $5, or $15 a month. You get access to different stuff at each level. Starting at the $5 a month level, you get access to bonus content. Every month we put out a bonus episode about whatever we want to talk about. We just put out our January bonus episode, which is about Nora. I think it was a really interesting discussion and a really good episode. If you're ever wanted to hear people break down what is all that discourse that you heard about Nora, heard people talking about Nora, we really get into it and kind of figure out how we feel about it, maybe why people felt the way they did about it, what, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, check that out at Patreon. And at the $15 a month level, you support us there. You get access to priority recommendations, where if there's something you would love for us to talk about, you can support us for $15 a month, request it, and we will add it to our queue as soon as we possibly can. And this, in fact, was a patron request from
Kelly Napier.
Thank you, Kelly, for finally giving me an excuse to gush about Edgar Wright on this podcast. Katie, it's time for the final verdict.
Sentence fast, verdict after. That's stupid.
Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is one of the most faithful adaptations we've ever watched. The excruciating commitment to recreating a huge percentage of the books exactly as they were drawn is staggering. But the movie sets itself apart by trimming down a fairly meandering story into a 2-hour thrill ride. It is Edgar Wright at his most Edgar Wrightiest, and I love it. Every shot, every transition, every music cue, every line of dialogue, and every fight scene is meticulously planned and crafted to perfection. There isn't a wasted moment, and not a single second of the film feels like an afterthought. I couldn't say the same thing about the books. The book's biggest strength is the time it gives us to understand the characters. We learn more about why Scott sucks, how his and Ramona's relationships have shaped them, and we see them go on a slightly more complete character journey. But here's the thing. Even in the book, the thematic and narrative arcs for the characters still aren't that great, and the ending still feels kind of cobbled together. Those are the biggest problems in the movie, and they exist because they're the biggest problems in the books. But the movie makes up for the narrative and thematic sloppiness by being one of the tightest action comedies of the 2000s. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World remains a masterpiece of kinetic filmmaking, as clever as it is colorful. It's dessert, but it is as good as dessert gets. The movie is better.
First off, I just want to co-sign everything Brian said because I 100% agree with his assessment. There were aspects of the books that I appreciated, mainly the expanded backstory and character development. But for me, those elements couldn't elevate the books above their excursive nature. There were numerous plot threads that didn't pan out to all that much. The expanding cast of characters was sometimes difficult to keep track of, and it was painfully obvious when O'Malley decided to make a big change partway through the series. Like Brian said, the movie isn't perfect. The ending is arguably weak, and not every element has aged well. But boy, is it fun. The music, the visuals, the cast. It may not be perfect, but in some aspects, it is so close to being a perfect film. The books are okay. I'm fine with having read them. But the movie is better.
Katie, what's next?
Up next, we are doing something very exciting to me and to you.
I can't wait.
We are going to be talking about Frankenstein,
Yes.
book by Mary Shelley, and we are specifically going to be covering the apparently very divisive 2025 Guillermo del Toro film.
Adaptation. Yep. Yes, we'll talk more about this on the prequel. But boy, am I excited! This is one we've both not seen it yet. We've been waiting to watch it because we knew we would be doing it, and I am so happy to jump in and finally see where I land because the opinions are divided on this movie.
Yes,
and I am so excited to finally see how we feel about it, and just to watch it because I'm expecting to like it, but who knows? Maybe I will not. We shall see. But that'll be in 2 weeks' time. We'll be talking about Frankenstein. In 1 week's time, we'll be previewing Frankenstein, as well as hearing everything you all had to say about Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Until that time, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and everybody else,
keep reading books,
keep watching movies,
and keep being awesome.